What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream interview here on Mikasa Sukasa. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. I have a very special guest today here to talk about why he went from being an Obama loyalist to feeling like Obama is one of the biggest obstacles to racial and inclusive justice. Before we get to the interview, of course, I would like to ask if you could support the show. You can do so by scanning any of these QR codes or going to the Linktree link in the description below. Or you can scan any of these QR codes. You can become a premium Patreon member, a Rockfin premium member, Cash App, or you can become a YouTube premium member to help support the show. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce my guests. Welcome back, Teodros Fikre Miriam.
Thank you, Nico. What's going on?
Nothing much, man. It's been a while, bro. We've been missing you out here. All these anti-establishment, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's anti-establishment now. It's funny, the other day I was thinking about you. Right before you had sent me that article, I was thinking about you. I'm like, damn, man. Teal just be proud because everybody just hates every politician now. He about that. So
that's the deception, though. That's the matrix.
That ain't right. And that's how it goes, man.
Played, so,
So,
it's kind of ironic that you said that because Obama was the deception.
Yeah, for sure. So, first of all, before we go into the nitty gritty of your article, can you just really quick give a brief description of like what you do, where you stand politically and socially, and all that good stuff?
Sure. So, I'm the co-founder of the Guion Journal. We started a new venture recently under that umbrella, which is the Guion Cast, where we kind of do like a daily 10-minute broadcast or podcast. So we're kind of going and we're bringing people along as well. Where I stand politically, I think I'm no man's land is where I stand politically. I don't know if this is an ideology, but my ideology is not to have an ideology. I was once a hardcore Democrat, consider myself a liberal, but to be honest, even back then, I never really fit into any one box, right? My views were, kind of. So, for example, I believe that an individual accountability for myself, but I also believe that other people who are not able to should be able to take care of them, right? And so there's certain things that I have within beliefs that I have, which I keep that private to myself. I don't believe in imposing that on other people. So I don't know what you would term that, right? So I haven't really changed when it comes to that, but in terms of identification. Definitely walked away from the plantation that is the Democrats. And unlike Candace Owens, who's a hustler herself, I'm not telling you to leave the plantation of Democrats to join the plantation of Republicans.
Don't you just love that?
You know what I'm saying? So independence is independence. It's not like if I chain you with a different handcuff, you're still chained. And so, that's what these pundits do. It's a hustle for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where I'm at.
I 100% agree, man. And it's funny that you bring up Candace Owens because I always talk. I was at a conference in Milwaukee, and somebody, it was a conservative leading guy, was like, "Oh, well, how come you don't seem too fond of Candace Owens?" And I'm like, I don't know about her as a person, but politically. Right. It's because like I actually believe in getting off the plantation. I'm not trying to be in the house or the field. Okay.
Right. Which one is which? Right. Which one?
So now what people might not know about you is that you're actually Ethiopian and you are a huge Ethiopian advocate. Right. A lot of your articles are centered around Ethiopia, but for the context of this conversation, I feel like it gives you a very unique perspective and probably some unique feelings about the way Obama, a fellow East African, went about his business, co-opting an identity that a lot of people thought would guide him when he became president. But it seems to be the opposite. Do you feel like being an Ethiopian kind of and having that, I guess, technically kinship in a way? Because of like being you were born in Ethiopia. Obama was one generation removed from Kenya. His stepdad Kenyan, his dad was Kenyan. Do you feel like that kind of like puts like almost like a different type of target on Obama's back for you personally?
Yeah, let choose those words carefully. I was like, don't want to have somebody knocking on my door. No target.
Not that type of target, FBI.
To say that coup d'etat being planned over here. Nah, do I personalize it more because of that? Definitely. Um, so, the fact that his dad was from Kenya, and I read his book in 2000, I don't know, 2007, I think I read it. I don't know when he published it, Dreams of My Father. And when I read it, I swear I cried because it identified with that so much. The sense of unbelonging, the sense of not really having an identity because, I was born in Ethiopia, but I came here when I was 8 years old. So I grew up the vast majority of my life identifying in a way as African American.
Yeah.
But when I first came here, who gave me the hardest time? It was African
African
Americans, right?
Americans usually,
Because
yeah.
I was seen as an outsider, exotic. I came during the height of the Ethiopian famine, so I had a level of resentment initially for a while until I learned to understand what that was about. The fact that we do the same thing on the opposite end. We kind of otherize each other on both sides of the Atlantic
Absolutely.
Ocean, right? So it kind of gave me, and I ended up joining a historically black Greek organization in 1996, and so I kind of started training, identifying a lot more with African Americans.
Man, I was
But
in the organization Margaret Willis Elementary School in 1996.
oh, but do I have a call sign? I don't.
Oh, man, I
Booty
was
who?
6 years old, man. 6 years old.
Now I just feel old all of a sudden. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah. but in all seriousness, it's I feel you because like I'm not African, but I'm part of the diaspora. Also, I'm a Barbadian, and when we moved from New York to the South, man, I was looked at like I was an alien, and I'm like, ain't we all black? And they're like, hey, but you a different kind of black though. You a little bit different. And they couldn't, and it wasn't even, it didn't have an accent or anything like that. But they couldn't pinpoint me because when you're like African or even one generation removed from Africa, or you're Bayesian or Pacific Islander, Caribbean, like your mannerisms are different, the way you carry yourself, because you learn all that stuff from your parents, your family, etc., especially in younger years. And so it's kind of like you exude something that isn't like them generationally. And for the in the context of Obama, like Joanne Reed, like Kamala Harris, for you and I, the feeling of almost like not belonging drove you drove us to kind of try to understand why there was that animus, and so we became activists from that perspective and tried to be understanding and bridge that gap. Whereas Obama, although he seemed to be searching for some empathy and sympathy from that story, what it looks like is he took that experience and weaponized it and completely disconnected from the African American community. What would you say to that?
So so I think there's two layers of Obama. One layer, and maybe there wasn't, right? Only God knows.
There's always two layers. There's a self and then there's a shadow self.
Well, when I say this, some people are just born to be opportunists, and maybe he wasn't that, is what I'm trying to say, right? Because I see like some of his idealism when he was younger. I've actually, read his book and his second book, and just did some research about him as well, and take it with a grain of salt when we watch a movie. That's propaganda.
Yeah, that's definitely. I ain't listening to none of that wrote down.
Yeah, but in between, they tell you the truth in between the lies, right? So I know that he had a deep sense of unbelonging. That I can, and even there's some aspects of him where he's very cold and disconnected, and there's once in a while he actually like you see the vulnerability, but it's few and far between. One of the times that it was when he was talking about how he felt like a sense of unbelonging.
He felt like, say it again.
A sense of unbelonging. He was saying how he's like a blank canvas, and people want to just paint whatever they want to see onto him, right?
It seemed like he let him do it too, honestly.
Yeah, well, sometimes you know how was that the poet that said when people tell you who they are, believe them.
Oh, it was oh my God, wow!
I know, Maya Angelou.
Queen, don't be mad at me. Wow.
Yeah, right.
Maya Angelou. Holy crap.
Yeah,
Lord, man, I'm about to get my black card taken. Okay,
Yeah.
but but
But no,
yeah, no,
so
you're right. You're right.
he warned us, and we just didn't want to listen to him. And I
You,
think a lot of it was just because, it's very hard once you believe in something to admit that you're wrong, right?
yeah,
Um, it's cognitive
the
dissonance.
ego is a
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah.
but
It is. And so for me too, even after he got elected, I saw him doing the same things that Bush was doing. I kept saying, well, you know what? Maybe no. It's of course. It's come on. It's his first year. I kept negotiating with myself, right? And then I
mm,
said, well, when the midterm passes, right? I kept excusing it. Okay, I want. Come on, man. He has to get reelected, right?
yeah.
And it wasn't until the 6.5 years that I finally said, wait a minute, think I got duped, you know? Like it took me that long.
For it was
Um,
it's and it's I think the 6.5 years was roughly around Ferguson, Baltimore.
yeah, it
People
was
find
right.
out that he
Exactly.
militarized the police even
Yeah,
further.
yeah, yeah.
Libya, like that whole the thing with Libya, that is just horrific considering his background, right? And like if people knew like just how that went down, like us, we installed someone in Chad. They were
Mhm.
housing terrorists. We were sending the terrorists into Libya. Every time Gaddafi retaliated against terrorism, they're like he's killing his own people. And
Right.
it was, it's been it's been going on since the '90s, but really Obama allowed his administration to ramp it up, and we not as open market slavery,
Yeah.
open market slavery brought back to Africa by an African. That's
Right.
that's some
So,
twisted.
you
It's
know,
twisted. It's like a movie.
names are powerful, right? So Barack Obama, Barack means blessings,
Mm,
and Obama means bent, like literally bent his father's dreams.
really?
And inverted whatever his father's dreams were for a Pan African independent Africa. Obama, man. So
So
these,
Obama means bent.
yeah, to bend,
That is
and
crazy.
yeah, and Barack
That's
means
woo,
blessing.
that's oh man. Hold on, I need you to say that one more time for the crowd again, because that is
Yeah,
crazy. That's like some. Bro, I almost got goosebumps.
yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, you become your name or the opposite of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
So in Amharic, it's Brook, Baruch, and Hebrew is also Baruch means blessings. And then I was like, what does Obama mean? So I did my research, and I think it's I forgot Luau, which is I believe the tribe that his father was from. It means to bend or the bending. So basically, he bent his father's dreams, or
Wow.
he bent his own dreams
Even
of what he should,
exactly, even his
right?
own.
Because I mean, this dude, he had the once in a lifetime opportunity to really be a transformational change, and he was anything but. So I guess for me, if I could kind of start from the beginning for me, right? So initially, it was the red state versus blue state speech he gave, right?
Mm-hmm.
I never knew about him up until then, and then I saw, and I was borderline depressed during that daggone convention with John Kerry, right? Of course, this is me as hardcore Democrat, and initially I was going for Howard Dean, and then he did his old meltdown. um,
Bah!
yeah, right. And then so I was like, I was like, this is Al Gore 2.0. It's gonna be the same thing. And then this guy comes out of nowhere and just lights the room on fire. And I was like, whoa. For me, I haven't felt that type of energy from a speech since RFK. Like for me, my
Mm.
favorite speech of all time is RFK. He's the speech he gave the two of them, the Martin Luther King assassination,
Mm-hmm.
when he went to Gary, Indiana, and they told him, do not go in there. There's going to be a riot. And with one speech, the only major city in America that didn't burn was Gary, Indiana, because he went in there and gave a speech. That's how powerful a speech is,
Yeah,
you know.
RFK was a different
Uh,
animal.
huh?
I said RFK was a different animal.
Yeah, yeah, he was. And the other one, the mindless menace of violence, man, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for like that is that's almost between him and Martin Luther King. Those are the gold standards of what a speech is. So Obama, well, he didn't necessarily top him or come close to him. The fact that he was even in the stratosphere was enough for me, you know. And
Yeah.
So I said, okay, he got on my radar, and then he was in 2007. Initially, I was like everyone else. I was like, he's not going to beat Hillary, but I was interested, and I kept watching. And I think it was the debate where um, Hillary messed up, and she said something about a license. License should be given to Mexicans or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you really go back and inspect when she lost the candidacy, it was that debate because she effectively tried, and then she tried to take it back, and he jumped on that, and her rank hypocrisy and her lies came through that day, and she started ever since then. She was fighting a defensive battle. So then
Man,
I said,
bro, Obama was taking it to Hillary
oh
over
yeah,
her
yeah.
inconsistency. Yeah.
Well, no, up until that moment, she was actually taking it to him.
Yeah, I
And
remember prior to that, and I think she was able to take advantage of the kind of like the openness of the stage because there were so many people
right,
involved, and then as
yeah,
the race started getting closer, like, and it was them two.
right.
Obama, the one thing people can't say about him is that he's not intelligent. That boy is cutthroat and he's intelligent.
Oh my
Give
God,
him
yo.
some time and he'll figure out a way
Oh
to
yeah,
chop you down. Like, yeah.
yeah. So, and I'm going to talk about that, about his level of intellect and his ability to shape shift.
Oh, before we even get into that, before we get into this, so I want to talk about your article first.
Right.
Now in your article, you talked about, like, I mean, you weren't just a fan, like, you were campaigning. You even have pictures of yourself on the road for Obama, and you were traveling around the
Right.
country for this man, and you know that, and you're describing in great detail all of the things that kind of like led you to support him. And by the way, like, for those of you who don't know, Tio just is a very intelligent gentleman. Like, and a lot of intelligent people fell for Obama, me included. I mean, I was a lot younger, but me included. And it's important to remember the context of Obama. Obama was arguing against the police state, people. Obama was arguing against Iraq and Afghanistan. Remember when we wanted Bernie Sanders to just shred Hillary Clinton? Obama was doing this. He was talking about reining in the CIA. Like, all this stuff that people think like Obama just was always this person where he's kind of having these missteps. He's not that. He wasn't that when he was running for office.
Right.
And so in your article, you're kind of talking about how you were kind of wooed by Obama. And basically by the end of it, you discussed just briefly, Artist Samad, like, he is one of the biggest obstacles to inclusive justice in this country. So just could you just describe, like, kind of like what your thoughts were behind your article?
Sure. So the basic premise, one of it is, I think it was just my way of burying the hatchet for me personally. Last week, he was on Colbert. Colbert. I don't even know what he calls himself.
Colbert, Stephen Colbert. Nobody watches him anymore. Go ahead.
Right, exactly. He's a neoliberal stooge. Once you realize these things, you can't look at things the same way anymore. Like I said, watching him and the Daily, like, even what's his name, the black dude on.
Oh man, Trevor Noah, another one.
Yeah, he's just they lie by omission, right? By criticizing one
part. How do you leave actual apartheid just to create an apartheid, be a part of the apartheid in your mind?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's fraudulence on all sides. But that being said, I didn't realize that back then because I didn't, my eyes were too covered by partisanship to know the difference. But for me, the reason that I see him for what he is now is that once you step away, you realize, like, for example, I made the statement and people, like, they lost their minds when I said this, that he's no different than Trump. And I'm like, what? And they just lose their minds. And I wrote an article once where I said it's all about strategic silence and strategic, amplification of emotions. So if I could explain that, what I mean is there was a time during Obama's administration where this white lady got killed by a Mexican immigrant, right? In certain cases, it's black and white. Injustice is injustice. You don't have to look at these things through blinders, through partisan blinders. If you get upset when a human life is lost, the decent thing to say is, at the very least, I'm sorry a human life was lost, right? Except he said nothing about that. And of course, Fox News went ape, dookie about it, right? And that was the strategic silence. And then not too long after that, or maybe could have been before that, Trayvon Martin gets killed, and he jumps all over that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that lets his crowd know, hey, I'm with you. This is your grievance. I'm going to speak up for your issues, even when it comes to the issues of humanity, because politics trumps humanity.
Yeah.
But when it comes to either a white lady getting killed or somebody that's on the Republican side, well, I'm not going to say anything. And that is what incites the emotions on the other side. Now, we don't notice these things because I didn't notice it back then because he was speaking to my issues, right? I only
It usually
noticed
seemed
it
like it, yeah.
when Trump does it. Now, when Trump does it to us. So a Muslim gets up and kills white people in France. Trump immediately jumps on that. But the strategic silence when a George Wallace gets killed or a black guy gets killed in in Texas or in California, he says nothing, nothing. Like human decency says, at the very least, you say, "I'm sorry for the loss of life." But this is how they gaslight us.
Yeah, his
This
silence
is,
on Breonna Taylor was damning.
huh?
His silence on Breonna Taylor and how that
Right,
situation unfolded. I mean, the AG getting caught lying and pretending as if the jury abdicated the police officers, and it turned out
yeah,
the jury never had an option to prosecute them,
right.
and he
But
didn't.
you see,
Don't say anything.
this is this is the bankruptcy of our politics because when you see Democrats jump on that, they're not doing that because they care. They're doing the strategic amplification of emotion because they don't say anything on when something else happens on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're intentionally agitating or inciting our emotions so that ultimately it's to turn neighbor versus neighbor, brother versus brother, right? And so you asked me earlier, like, what type of an insight does it give me as an Ethiopian? Well, I used to think it was a burden that I felt a deep sense of unbelonging because I didn't really feel completely at belonging in the Ethiopian community. I was too Americanized. Came in when I was 8. I barely speak the language. I understand it, but I just think differently. Our culture is very much like respect the elders. Don't rock the boat. I'm a boat rocker.
Yeah, it's very socially
Right?
conservative. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't really fit in too much in the Ethiopian community either. So I found myself, not being anywhere like Obama. The difference is I didn't use that as an occasion to say, you know what, I'm going to just be a con artist. I chose like to be empathetic. I'm not saying I'm an angel. Trust me, Niko, I have done a lot of things I mean, nothing like illegal, right? You know what I'm saying? But just, partying. Um, I've done my share of.
I've definitely done illegal shit. I've definitely done but you know what I'm saying? It didn't necessarily define me, you know? It just was that
Right.
was my experience at the
No,
time. You know, we're
illegal,
all
I mean,
victims of circumstance and
sure.
experience. So
What's illegal? I mean, I've done stuff where I smoked weed in the past. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I smoked weed in the past 3 hours, actually.
oh, me would have been like, come on, pass it. But me, I'm just.
My whole chat section gonna say pass it. They always do. Sorry, bro. Go ahead, man.
Oh man, but no. So I see whatever I thought was a sense of unbelonging was I see it now as a blessing. By the way, is my audio clear? I don't know if it's breaking up a little bit, but yeah, I see everything the other way, which is not being so attached to one identity gives me the space enough
Mm.
to know what this bamboozle is about. And
Man, you just said it. It's so crazy because for me, it took me until well into my 20s. I used to get
right,
depressed because of my identity or lack thereof, quote unquote, was like becoming an interference in literally every single aspect of my life. My relationships, my like playing sports, because like if I go to play soccer, which I'm good at, like people will pick me first immediately. Wasn't even a question. I'm like, bro, you don't even know how good I am. I ain't never seen any of my life. I will go to play basketball, and even though I was one of the best players in my city, like they didn't know me, if a person didn't know me, they'd be like, but my brother would get picked up, and he didn't even start playing basketball until he was like 14 or 15 years old, and like people just thought he was good because like we're mixed, we're half black and half Asian, but he looks like he's just half black, half white. So they're like, well,
mm,
we know what that is. But like being Bayesian, like, well, why your hair look like that? Why your skin tone look like that? Why you red? Why you got freckles? Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you a baller, bro. You know, and then I'll go on the court, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, you're actually good. I'm like,
Right,
but
right.
then you start to
Yeah,
question over time, like, why is that is?
your
And
identity.
it is
Yeah, yeah,
that identity. People don't feel like that you can associate with their identity, and because of that, all those things we all have those natural what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like where it's like a trigger where you kind of okay, if I see this, I know this. It's
right,
like shortcuts that your brain creates in order for you to adjust it to any situation really quickly. And
right.
but those preconceived biases, like for people like you and I, it's a problem for like when you're
Mhm.
growing up and you don't have an identity because
Right,
they are unsure. Humans, when they're unsure of something, they tend to avoid it or demonize it.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
but
exactly. Yeah,
by
man.
my 20s, that lack of identity allowed me it gave me such a crystal clear perspective that before I felt limited by not feeling like I had an identity that I can relate to with anybody. And then it went from that to I felt almost free.
Mm,
It was freeing that I didn't have to be loyal to an identity. That I could just be loyal to myself and the truth, and
yeah,
that's it.
yeah, yeah. Isn't that deep? Yeah. Some I don't know who told me this, but a blessing is a curse in disguise. No, I think yeah, that too. A curse is a blessing in disguise, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's everything has a duality, and so it's all depends on how you view things in life, and so how you speak about things, how you understand things, will define you either in a good way or in a bad way, right? So the same things I thought, oh, I feel lonely, I don't feel a sense of belonging, and all the things I did to try and fit in because of that. I look at it now, I'm like, thank God, because now I feel like, and I'm not saying this to be like to belittle others, but for me, I feel like I know who I am in this world because of that. And what I thought was not knowing who I was is actually a process of knowing who I am. Um,
How many people try to take advantage of you? Very similar to what we've seen for Obama. I know I've experienced it as well. But how many people have tried to take advantage of you to because when you don't have an identity, you start to yearn for attention, acknowledgement,
right.
confirmation, and
Oh
affirmation.
man,
So
this is
you
deep.
become
Yeah.
overly ambitious and you're willing to step on anybody. They are hoping that you want to step on anybody to get there. So how many people try to take advantage of you because of that and play on your ambition and the feeling of longing?
So let's go back. Let me tie that back into 2008, right? And the genesis of all these things. So once Hillary made that slip up, I said, okay, I'm not going to just be a sideline observer. And my brother
Mm-hmm.
at that time became a field organizer for the Obama campaign in Iowa. So I had dropped him off in Cedar Falls, Iowa, I think it is, Cedar Rapids. Went to go visit the office. They were really nice folks, and I was like, man, I kind of felt jealous because I was like, he had just graduated from college, and at that point, I was, I was working a 9 to 5 defense consulting, which you know, um, and I was just like, man, there's a level of freedom. He's coming out here to just strike out on his own. I'm over here doing TSP reports every Monday. Like, so that kind of sparked me initially. And then when I said, okay, I'm going to go all in, I didn't even know where to start. So I started an organization of one. That was me, right? Called Omegas for Obama, which I'm in a fraternity called Omega Psi Phi. So I joined, started a group that's Omegas for Obama. Started a group chat, and I started emailing, bros everywhere throughout America. And initially, I felt frustrated because I was like the frustration level. I mean, the excitement level is not where I want it to be. So then I bought 100 T-shirts that said Omegas for Obama. And I was like, all you have to do is give $20 to the Obama campaign. I'll ship it out for you for free. So send
Mm.
out 100 T-shirts like that, and spend $1,000 out of my pocket to do that. So remember what you said about you wanted to do a lot of things in order to feel accepted or to feel,
To
that
feel
you
like what
belong.
you're doing is validated, yeah.
Yeah. So I found my identity through that, and then at a certain point, um, I linked up with my fraternity brother that lived in Chicago. I'm not going to say his name. Who was the good like he lived in the same neighborhood as the Obamas, and his wife was very connected in Chicago politics, very powerful. He had a good job, let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
She had connections. So one day, after Hillary barely, eked out a victory in New Hampshire, I knew what they were going to try to do. They were going to try to blacken him and say, of course, he's going to win South Carolina, right? And so discount that and on to Nevada. And most, if she wins that, then the media narratives will start, and then they're going to drum him out of it. So everything was really at that point became all about South Carolina, and so they were trying to diminish that. So I was like, I kept playing that. I was like, I can't believe they're about to just do him like that. But they're about to do him like Howard
Like all of
Dean.
a sudden, being able to win a state just because you're black is a bad thing. Like never in life did anyone think that anyone would make an argument. Yeah, of course he won that state. He's black.
Meanwhile, Biden won the presidency because of the black vote in South Carolina.
I know. That's
You know what I'm saying? Had it not been for that, and if there's anyone that he owes his presidency to, it's the African American community. They stepped up and they voted for him, and because of his association with
and some voting and some voting machines that had no way to track the votes in South Carolina. But that's a different discussion for a different day. Anyway, go ahead.
let's focus on Russia, right? Anyways, but so anyways, I said, oh man, who am I, right? I guess I have audacity too. I was like, I'm gonna write a speech idea. So I begged away 2 paragraphs, and it started off with like from the cornfields of Iowa to the granite hills of New Hampshire to the seashores of South Carolina to the deserts of Nevada, and then it went through and used that alliteration. You know how they do it. You know what I'm saying?
Give a speech to him all day.
And I picked up on it. I mean, I've always loved writing, but I picked up on what they do a long time ago. So I just echoed that. And I was like, a white child, a black child is not made better of the white, all that, right? Just paralleling and echoing the red state versus blue state. So I forwarded that over to my fraternity brother. He looks at it, he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. He then forwards it on to Valerie Jarrett and Obama's sister. I think it was Pam. I think that's her name. He never told me which sister it was. Mm-hmm. So they look at it and they love it. They forward it on to the speech team.
Wow.
So then, people say I've made a couple of allusions to this in the past, and some people are like, "Oh, Obama's speechwriter." No, I'm not.
Yeah, they hear one thing, like people heard that in the military intelligence brigade, and they're like, "Niko's former CIA." I'm like,
"You're like what? No,
I was like E4 in the brigade as a paralegal. I just happened to be there.
You wouldn't want to hear whatever they want to hear. So right. So just for the record, it was one line. It was the opening line that they used from the cornfields of Iowa, whatever, right? That line was used. And he used that, by the way, that was the closing line of the speech. And then my fraternity brother responds back. He's like, yo, Brother Fikre made history. And, I have all this on email. That's the beauty of email. I could also work for you sometimes. So
okay. I gave AOC. So when she was getting destroyed by by CNN and MSNBC, all these people asking her like, oh, well, how are you going to pay for healthcare? How are you going to pay for that? I was actually the one who gave her all the answers, like that viral CNN interview. I regret it now. I regret it a lot. But I can say it now because I don't like her. Like, I still got the text messages. I was the one who told her what to say. Like, verbatim.
People think that these politicians are some, like, oracles of Delphi.
Nah.
They're not. They employ people, and they also leverage people like us, the idealists.
Yes.
Right? The idealists who, and by the way, that article that I wrote is on behalf of every Obama volunteer, a lot of Obama volunteers and organizers and people that bled to get this man elected. And every time people read that article, there's a large portion of that respond back to me and say thank you. It was a cathartic moment, and it was cathartic for me too. But so from that moment on, I went even more full bore, right? I went to like 18 states. Keep in mind, I'm doing my MBA at Johns Hopkins. Yeah, 18 states.
Bruh, that's crazy.
On my time and on my dime. and like I said, I'm also going to school full time at Johns Hopkins, doing my MBA. I'm working full time at Booz Allen Hamilton. And I had at that
I'm gonna
moment,
lie,
I had
bro. You sound real African right now.
yeah, 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 you late.
Oh shit! I thought I was like, he gonna say NYU, Duke, UNC, Johns Hopkins, or Ivy League. Go ahead, man.
But no, so and it wasn't good, by the way. And it kind of gave me a moment of crystallization, just where you said a lot of times when you don't feel like you belong, you go too extra to try to prove yourself, and that's what I did. I literally drove myself into exhaustion. I at a certain point, so I went from Omegas for Obama to then I transitioned to Ethiopians for Obama, right? And that became my thing for a long time, actually throughout the duration. And that's how I reconnected with the Ethiopian community. Up until that point, I grew up in Woodbridge, Virginia, disconnected from the Ethiopian community. Went to school. I really didn't have any connections with them. I loved the fact that I was Ethiopian and what that represents. But in terms of the connection with the people, it really wasn't any outside of my family. So I'm
Yeah,
thankful for it.
that's how I felt. That's how I feel too, man. Because
Yeah,
I was born here, and like you
yeah,
came over here when you were young, so like basically the same thing.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm talking to my mirror.
Bro, the diaspora connection is something that is very much so under discussed. It is very much so under discussed. And the only reason I even thought about it to discuss like over the last few years is because I know it's gonna sound weird. I went to a Korean church for like 10 years. And the Korean, so there's a lot of half Koreans. There were a lot of half Koreans at my church because I lived in Fayetteville, which is Fort Bragg is there. And so a lot of like half Koreans are there. And that's like a rare thing because it is very taboo for Koreans to marry outside of Korean ethnicity or nationality. And it's mostly a language thing because the parents want to be very involved in the marriage. And if they can't understand, the in-law, then it's like a thing. So,
Right.
but the kids there were always having identity crises, all of
Yeah.
them, because not only were they they were half Korean, which is like a weird thing for Koreans, but then like, yeah, you could speak Korean, but you can't speak real Korean. Like they can't speak
Right.
honorifically and things like that. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're Korean, but you don't have Korean mannerisms.
Mm. Yeah.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
crazy.
Like, and this was like, and I guess that's one of the reasons I like kind of like could relate to the church so well. And I didn't think about it at the time, but all of us were kind of going through very similar identity crises at the time. And so like, but yeah, I just hadn't, like I said, it wasn't until really my late 20s that I really thought like, wow. I mean, it ended up being actually a good thing, but I could see how it could individualize you so much that you end up becoming Joyanne Reed or Barack Obama or Kamala Harris. Or
Yeah.
Don
Yeah.
Lemon, who's an NPC probably from a video game nobody knows about. But
Yeah. It's
well, I hate
funny.
Don Lemon. I'm sorry, I just got to say that again. Don Lemon, that boy bad. I don't know who the hell cutting his hair, but fire your barber or find one of the two. Damn, stop letting your wife cut your hair, bro.
Just pay for the cut.
Just pay for it, bro. You work for CNN, pay for the cut. You're gonna sell out. Spend the money.
That's funny when you just said that. People, have you ever seen like people that do like really dastardly deeds? They wear it on themselves, and I just don't like. Why are you wearing those jacked up glasses? Why don't you get new glasses? Or it's like because I think it's a projection of whatever. Because you can't negotiate with yourself. You know when you're doing something bad. Ultimately, you know what I'm saying. So just whatever shitty, excuse my language, whatever shitty
Oh
mood
no,
that you feel,
it's fine. Come on. We got.
it manifests outward, and that's why, by the way, if you look at every president, look how quickly they age. Maybe that's not because of the stressed office, it's because of the shit that they're
It's the
doing.
guilt, bro. It's the guilt.
Yeah,
Like I'm
exactly.
stressed, bro. Like don't get me twisted. Like I'm stressed. I'm 32 years old, bro. I look good for my age, man. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, but I try to
I'm
live
46 years old,
righteously.
bro.
You know, and because of that, when I go to bed at night, I might feel guilty of what I couldn't get done, but I never feel guilty for what I did.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, me too. Like I said, I just turned 46 a month ago.
Oh,
And
for
people,
real?
when I tell you I'm 40, they're like,
Damn.
what?
Bro, I thought you was 40. I thought you may have just turned 40, dog.
No,
Like,
bro, no.
that's
But
crazy.
and given like I'm gonna get to that at a certain point, but given all the stuff I've been through, especially in the past 4 years, you would think I would have aged, and I didn't, And I think a lot of that's just because that's the beauty of staying true to yourself. You might not be a billionaire or a millionaire. Netflix might not give you a deal with $60 million, but you get to have like a level of serenity to yourself.
Interestingly enough, even though Obama aged ridiculously, like during his tenure, and even after he got out of office, he's aging like faster than
Right?
what I
Yeah.
expected. It's funny because Michelle literally has not aged since she became the first lady. And it's peculiar, and I've always felt like actually Michelle wasn't riding out with a lot of what Barack was doing, but like that, black women are just way too loyal to their black men. Like we don't deserve them. And and I think that has a lot to do with like because she stayed out of a lot of it. And in fact, the first time that actually had something negative to say about Michelle specifically was when all of a sudden she went from how you going to run the country when you can't run your own house, bro, which is like, bro, that was the most black woman thing that anyone has ever said. But when you go from that to, I think that Hillary's the most qualified candidate in the history of this country, when you know that to not be true, that lets me know that, Michelle really very well may be a good person, but your loyalty is to your husband before people, it's to your husband before truth and honesty and righteousness, and that does make you particularly dangerous as well. But like I said, she didn't age at all for some reason. She don't look stressed.
Wasn't I don't know. So I'm not in the business of airing out allegations without factually proving them. But somebody said that she worked at the Foreign Council
for Foreign Relations.
Did she?
I've never read her name there. She was working very closely with the Illinois government. Obviously she was a very, very successful attorney, but like people don't know that actually she was kind of like an up and coming prodigy before Barack.
Obama.
She was a millionaire before Barack was. Yeah. Barack was worth like 200, 300,000. Michelle's worth like 4 million. Right. So, and I mean, everybody, that was like kind of like Barack Obama's secret weapon. People are like, yeah, you cool. But and then Michelle comes out and the world's on fire.
Yeah. So in fact, the two people that enabled them to become president are, I'm not sure which one is more important, Michelle Obama and Oprah. Because Oprah, when she signed on to him,
that's the first politician she endorsed, right?
What was that?
First politician she ever endorsed.
Yeah, exactly. And when she did that, by the way, like he was going through a little bit of, I think, no, it was before that, but there was some type of a turbulence that he was going through at a moment. And if you notice throughout his campaign, it was brilliant. Because whenever they have a dip or something bad happens, they would always come out with a big time endorsement. And so the momentum would always be on the up and up. You know what I'm saying?
It was clearly planned. It was scary. It was actually scary at how on point it was.
Yeah, and it was planned.
No, definitely. Well, no. So I won't say it was planned necessarily by. This is one of those situations where it's weird. I don't think it was planned by the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party ultimately had to bow down because I think there was a greater power. Like I'm sure you know, Obama was mom CIA, father CIA, stepfather CIA, grandfather CIA, responsible for toppling multiple governments in the Philippines. Like that's what caught him off guard whenever the birtherism argument started. Wasn't that he wasn't from America, it's that he found out that he was born in a hospital that doesn't exist anymore because it was on a base where they were teaching secret Russian to CIA agents, and that's how his parents met. So now you like, what? So no, that's not true. I was born in Hawaii on a secret CIA base. What you talking about? Now what? Boy, you gonna see right-wing conspiracy. Like, I mean, not that they would have. Shit, it seems like they wouldn't have been wrong, but unfortunately, would have probably been racist based on some racial prejudice, like calling him Muslim or some shit. But either way, it would not have been a good look, especially after he spent so much time during the debates railing against the over surveillance of the CIA and the FBI.
Man, the ways that some of it sound like a Rastafarian. Babylon is tricky. And by the way, when I say planned, I wasn't saying the Democrats planned it. I'm talking about like David Axelrod and Pluff. And if you don't know Pluff, I think it's Pluff, more than David Axelrod, it was Pluff. That dude was a genius. And he was the reason that actually, so there's the triumvirate of
Mm-hmm.
Pluff, Oprah, and Michelle
Oh, one
on
more.
why he got elected.
Howard Dean stepping
Ah,
in and saying, "Look, Hillary, you think
yeah,
you powerful? I get it. You powerful. You might be the most powerful person in this party, but you ain't the most powerful person in the world." And this, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
they're like,
true.
you gotta bow down.
I
Um,
think so. What he did was clear the way, but in terms of actually paving the way, like he cleared the obstacle at the end, right? But in terms of the engines that drove the
that
campaign,
not
you know what I'm
the
saying?
initiators, yeah.
And Puff, man, I actually I got I used to have it. I threw it away. A book that he wrote, signed, and I read that book cover to cover because I was like, oh, I could emulate this for the Ethiopian community. I wanted to be an organizer for the Ethiopian community. And I saw he's like, I learned a lot from them about how they're going through micro targeting. How so they would back in the day, like anyone that was involved in the campaign would tell you, you go to the office, you make phone banking, you do 1, 2, 3, and 4. One is heavily interested, or the base. So basically, yeah, yes, I'm strong preference. So they throw those away. And then fours are, heck, no way, I'm not going to vote for him no matter what. Throw that away. The only ones that you care about are the
Two
ones
and
that are
three.
leaning one way or the other, right? And that's like a level of micro targeting that the Democrats no party had done up until that point. It was a like
Yep, you're right.
micro targeting, right? That's why Obama won.
Yeah,
His whole thing was, how they do Moneyball and like what's that thing called sabermetrics.
yeah.
They used sabermetrics for politics in 2008, and it's never been done before up until that point.
Man, yeah,
And
Obama, bro, his campaign was genius. Like the whole thing from start
yeah,
to finish.
yeah, yeah. So and
Now
I
we know
was
why Mike
actually,
Gravel said he was so scared of him, bro.
yeah,
Mike Gravel. Oh, Mike Gravel said that in a debate. He said he's like, yeah, y'all scare me. He's like, but you looked him
right,
straight in the face. Didn't. He said you scared me the most because you actually think
right,
you can do this by yourself.
right, and
Like, and bro, I got chills when I watched that last year. I was like, what? This man Gravel knew. And
right. Oh,
before even Obama knew, I truly believe that even before Obama himself knew just how bad he was going to be. Because,
mm,
like you said, Obama doesn't want to do bad things because he thinks it will get backlash. But then it became
mm,
about maintaining the image of not doing bad things. You know
mm,
what I'm
mm,
saying? But like, of course, what do you threaten Barack Obama with? Like, what can you threaten the president with? Well, I mean,
mm,
assassination could make him the most popular president in history, so you can't really threaten him
right,
with that. Threaten his brand.
right, right.
And as people have seen in the last year or so, whatever Barack Obama thinks his brand is on the line, my man comes out and makes an ass of himself to protect it.
Right, right.
Bruh.
Because you know why? It's a house of cards. I'm surprised I didn't get a knock at the door because I wrote what I wrote. On the real though, like um, the fact that he could potentially be exposed as a fraud is something that he's terrified of. You know, um, so when somebody says, "Hey, listen, I wrote a part of this," you know what I'm saying? Like I could imagine if this story ever gets to be too big, right now I'm a nobody, so I don't give a shit about me.
You're not nobody. You're not
But
nobody. But I get what you mean.
you see what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I have 8,000 followers on Twitter. The dude has, I don't even know how
For
many.
those of
You
you
know
who
what I'm
know,
saying? Like,
Tio just trying to be humble. He got a few viral articles out there. Don't let him try to play y'all. He being humble right now, but he got a few of them out there already.
no, but seriously, I could imagine somebody with a higher level of visibility was doing what I was doing. Yeah, what that could lead to.
Yeah,
Because he's mortified of that aura. But except that aura is
he
being stripped
is.
away every day now. People are waking up to it left and right. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but he was terrified of that when he was president.
The
I don't think he cares anymore. To be
the
honest.
most terrifying thing for the entire establishment really is the real Obama, who's out there somewhere
Right.
waiting to come and use
Yeah.
that unique experience. Like for me, one of the reasons I supported Tulsi was because she had a very similar experience like that too. Not necessarily a lack, because she has like a feeling of belonging to Hawaii, but Hawaii has their kind of own weird indigenous thing. But like,
Mm,
she's not Hawaiian really; she's Samoan,
right.
and
Right.
she's
Yeah.
not Christian, she's Hindu. But
Right.
it's not. And people think that she's from India, but she's not. It's actually her mother who's Hindu, her white mother who's Hindu. So she has that very unique experience. It was funny because it was causing her some problems during the race. Like she would say things and then like not understand culturally why people would react the way they did, because she's like, hold up, this is a problem. And it's because like in Hawaii, this is a thing. Like Hawaiians wouldn't respond this way. But they're worried. And what was she wanted the same thing. She wanted a rainbow coalition as well. She wanted to challenge the military industrial complex. She wanted to and these are things that like you have to be from Ethiopia, be from the Caribbean diaspora. You had to see these things or be a generation removed and see how it's affected your family and it's affected the people around you. And it makes you very passionate about it. And also you don't feel like I'm sure that totally feels loyalty as an American to America, but like she got a loyalty to the mainland. Like she got into politics specifically because of climate change, and she went from city council to the youngest state congresswoman in Hawaii's history to obviously congresswoman, and all because of her loyalty to the island. And and it's kind of funny because like our loyalty is kind of to an island as well, like not like where we're from, but an island of the people who are most vulnerable to the actions.
And that's where see, I think that's the beauty. I'm sorry, I didn't mean kind of got excited when you said that. No, but when you see enough suffering, you have two choices. You could say, well, that's not. I used to say, in life you have when bad things happen to you, you can either invert the pain or revert the pain, right? Revert to pain or invert the pain. So let's say somebody comes and beats you up, or you could say, you know what? I'm not gonna let that happen to anybody else. So you become like superhero, try to protect everyone. So all you did at that moment is you made a decision to invert the pain and try to protect other people. Some people say, well, I got beat up. Well, screw it, I'm gonna beat up everybody else. So you revert to the same pain that was given to you and you pass it on to other people, right? I think some people that I think it's all about trauma. Whatever traumas you experience, you either say, I'm not going to let that
it's all about trauma, always.
Yeah. And trauma, being born is a trauma to begin with. But
right? You come out, it's true. Come out the womb traumatized.
You are comfortable for 9 months, and all of a sudden some random dude is pulling at you. Like, that's traumatic,
Probably a white guy, black hair, like, who it is, man? I don't... You get picked up by a white dude and get handed to this black woman, you're like,
but you see, even that, like in the womb, you had no idea about these things. You were blind to that. You know what I'm saying? Like this world, you're born into division, and you are one in the womb with the source of life.
Yeah.
And then you come into this world, you're divided, and you're divided literally from the umbilical cord, and then everything else from that point on, this world teaches you how to be divided from.
They literally take you from your mother and put you in a. They literally take you from your mom. You literally get divided from your mom.
Yeah. So they divide us from love, right? And then and every conditioning, every indoctrination from that point on, whether it's race, I say, I know it sounds controversial for some, but like the terms black and white, I know why they were invented, right? Trust me when I tell you, folks in Africa were not calling themselves black before the imposition, before the invasion, before colonization.
I mean,
this is by very definition, it's a colonial tag. It's a brand, right? We didn't call ourselves that, and so they came and they call us black. Why would they call us black? And why would they call themselves white? Is to divide, to fracture humanity, right? It's a position, and biblically speaking, everything black is nefarious, and everything white is pure.
Yeah.
So, and that's the second one. And the third one, if you look at your skin, Niko, I challenge you to put up something black next to you.
No, I'm red. I'm red.
I've never had a man that's either black or white. It is the silliest thing, and insidious, by the way, that we do this, because the minute that we accept these labels, then we feed into the divisions that are at the source of conflict, right? So I'll push back against that, but it's so hard because once you point identity to that, people are willing to die for identities.
Yeah.
So I don't know how
philosophically, I agree with you. The only problem is when we're dealing with the challenges to help people understand, like where those challenges come from, you kind of have to link it back to that identity, because that identity is so loaded. Like there was a reason like you said, there was a reason the colonists used that identity and then attached it to us. And so, like you said, all that trauma, everything that comes, you got to almost kind of remind people like, no, we're black. Remember? Don't say we're brown now. Don't even call Obama half black. I hate when people do that. Y'all know I don't like Obama, but don't call him half black. He black. But you know how you know somebody's black? If Obama married a white girl from Alabama and walked into her house and her dad saw him, my daughter brought home a what?
Of course, I don't disavow these things, right? Of course, it's been branded on us, right?
Yeah.
So, but for me, what I'm saying though is, when somebody gives you poison, right? You still have a choice? If your choice is poison hot dog or no food at all, you have a choice. I mean,
but with poison it's I'm poison, I'm dead.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? With black, it's I'm black, so I gotta deal with this. Then my kids have to deal with this. And then you see me in making your decisions on why I do what I do and why you should move the way you move because of this. And so the saying black isn't almost it's kind of like when I know you don't say because most Africans don't, which it makes sense. But like,
hold on, that's the thing though. I don't differentiate myself from the kinship that I have. It's the label, not
but I'm saying like nigga, like people don't like that, and even some white people are like, oh, I hate that word, which it's good. I hope you do, but like at the same time, I'm not gonna. I don't hate the word. I hate when someone uses like most words. I hate when someone uses it nefariously. Right. But at the same time, because of my experiences, because of what y'all forced upon me and how I see myself and how other people see me and how the society sees me and views me and treats me, you don't get to tell me what I can call myself. Like, no, because y'all don't want to be reminded of all the shit that y'all have contributed to and also benefited from either directly or indirectly. When we take something that y'all branded us with and then use it to remind you and empower ourselves and saying, nah, bro, it doesn't matter what the word is. You can take any word and make it powerful. And that's important for people to people make fun of themselves all the time and call themselves whatever racial slur, just because they're trying to take away power from it.
So let me ask you a question. I know these things because you know the power of words, right? So for me, this is not necessarily external, but internal in terms of why I push back against it. And it's hard because we're conditioned so much that I don't even know. Like if I'm talking to you, right? Before I even say, hey, I'm talking, hey, have you know Niko, right? And then they're like, who is he? What's the first thing people say? Oh, this black dude that's, right? It's just automatic. Before I describe,
sometimes it's weird with me. It's not usually that in politics. Sometimes, a lot of times, because my first name. To be honest with you.
Yeah. So let me give you an example. Somebody at the office says, "Hey, do you know?" I ask somebody, "Do you know Sally?" And they're like, "Who?" Right? And that description is going to be if she happens to be black.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, that does happen.
It's impossible.
Because when they hear my name, they start looking people up, Greek people and Japanese people come up.
But no, it's just so it's very hard. I don't even know. Like even though I made a whole video about it, saying disavow these terms because they're. But now I also am pathetic because first off, I can't lecture people, right? I know I come from Ethiopia, right? As in I know my roots in that way. So I could always go back and say I'm Ethiopian. But if you take away the word black from African Americans, what do they have? You see what I'm saying? So when I looked at it that way, I was like, damn, that's kind of.
You'll get erased quick. You'll get erased. I trust me, ask these indigenous people. You know what I'm saying?
It's just hard, yo. But on the flip side, the reason that I kind of push back against it is because I know the power of words. And I know the power of like the psychological warfare of these things by association, right? If you call yourself black and then you go out into the world and you're being bombarded with imagery, right? That associates every bad thing with that color. Even though you're saying consciously black is beautiful, subconsciously you're being attacked. That is not.
It's a defense. It's a defense mechanism, right? It's a reaction to people saying that black isn't beautiful.
Right. Yeah. So ultimately, it's like what we were talking before about the Matrix. When you fight the Matrix, you become one with the Matrix. You know what I'm saying? So and to prove that point, there was remember the study that was done during Thurgood Marshall when he was trying to prove whether or not separate but equal leaves a damage, damages the psyche of black children.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that same study with the white dolls and black dolls, right?
Mm-hmm.
That same study was repeated in the 1990s. Same results. Same results. Identical. So why is that? Because there's a psychological warfare being initiated at all times, and part of that warfare is when you attach yourself to an identity that has a negative connotation. No matter how, it's like there's this lady that used to say, she would call herself the B word all the time, right? I'm like, why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's a huge thing in the early 2000s.
She was like, I'm taking ownership of it. But the more she did that, the more she became of that. You become that which you call yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at your name, Niko, I'm pretty sure you've done research. There's a meaning behind it. I'm pretty sure.
People.
Huh?
My name means victory for the people. I'm named after the Greek goddess Nike.
Right. So your victory house, right? You have like you're welcome people into your house.
Specifically, I don't. I know it sounds crazy, but right. I always say it doesn't because people say, oh, it means victory because of Nike. No, it means victory for the people. Because if it's just victory, then which is what Nike did, right? It's Nike just means victory, and people don't know what the root of that name is, but it means victory specifically for the people.
For the people, right? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So you basically your house means victory for the people's house. Your house
that's true.
represents the victory for the people, right?
I never put it side by side with my last name like that before, but that's interesting.
Yeah, you become that. And guess what? My name, so my name is Tewodros Shikomayam. Tewodros, so my great-grandfather, 5 generations removed, was the king of Ethiopia by the name of Ate Tewodros, right? And Tewodros literally means the translation is either the gift of God or the weapon of God. And then my last name, Fikre, so it's Fikre Mariam is the full name. In Ethiopia, we take our first name as our last name. Oh. So his first name is Fikre Mariam. But when he came to America, he made it Fikre as his first name. So then we took on Fikre instead of Fikre Mariam. So in honor of my dad who passed away in 2001, I just reverted back to Fikre Mariam just to honor him. But Fikre Mariam means my love, right? And Fikre Mariam means my love Mary. So if you look at my name, Tewodros Fikre Mariam, or just Tewodros Fikre, the weapon of God is love. Right, and your name is Niko House, the house of the people's victory. Like we either become our names, or we become the opposite of it. So that's Barack Obama, guess what? He became his name. So when you name your kids,
take that shit seriously, y'all. It is not a game. It is not.
The most important decision you can make for your kids is what you call them.
I'm not even having a baby right now, and we've been looking up baby names for the last 2-3 years because so funny story. So I'm big into astrology and numerology because I believe all things are connected, and a lot of stuff is just science that we ain't figured out yet. Or I actually believe like astrology, for example, there is a mathematical science to it. Like in India, you can get your PhD in astrology, and like the government there doesn't make any decision without consulting their federal astrologer. It's like that. And the reason that we're not taught that as a science is because what astrology does, it's really just like, in my opinion, it's like it's chemical. It's energy, right? And how energy affects the way you process things. It isn't telling you can't change the way you process things. It's just telling you this is your default mode. But if you learn about your shortcomings that may not have been your fault, you're just born like that, then you can fix them and you can make yourself, you know what I'm saying? You make yourself more digestible to society and you can become successful. Now you got all your positives and you turn your negatives into at least neutrals or positives also. And so when I was looking up my numerology and my life path number is an 11. And it starts off as a 2.
That's deep.
Bruh.
Yeah,
so you know.
Yeah, so 2,
for those of you who don't know, a 2 becomes an 11, and it's like basically you're destined to struggle for your entire life until you're 30. Like you're going to go through hell, but it's because you're being cultivated and nurtured and groomed to be frank, it's to be great. Unfortunately, with numerology, it's subjective. It isn't, oh, you're going to be good. It's just, no, you're going to be great. And whatever it is that you do. Now, here's what's funny about that. Obama's at 11 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, and let me tell you. So I picked my name, Niko for the people at gmail.com about 4 or 5 years ago. And I didn't know what my name meant. I just like, oh, actually, it was the first thing that came to my mind. Like, Niko for the people, that sounds right. And then about 2-3 years later, I started looking into numerology, and I'm reading, and it says 11s choose their name because they're the telepathic. So they tell their mother what their name is supposed to be based off of all, because we're the oldest souls on the planet. And it's based off of all of the other experiences you had, because you know what you're here to do. And you tell your mother what your name is supposed to be when you come out the womb, which explains why my Barbadian mother, because she's kind of like disconnected from diaspora as well. She didn't have any connection to anything, so she wasn't like thinking like, oh, I want to name my kid something that would be common in Barbados. And my dad wasn't. My dad's kind of disconnected from his culture as well. So it's like, Niko sounds good, and that was my name. And people were always kind of confused, and they thought like, oh, well, are you half Japanese? Well, no. Or are you like Latino? And it's like short for Nicholas? No, it's just Niko. And for me, like, that was like, bro, I had to sit back when I heard like, what the what? Yeah. That can't be, there's no way. I'm like, Niko, like, bro, how do I get the exact meaning as my email address?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? There's no accidents.
No.
There are no accidents, everything. So I have a theory on that. So this is, let's say I was writing a book, right? a fiction novel. And I kind of try to base it on reality. And so, 4 years ago, let me not step on the leading part of it that's coming up. I went through a challenging time in my life where I was homeless for 1.5 years. So I had a lot of time on my hands, Niko.
I was homeless too, so I know what you mean. Yeah.
You kind of get to know yourself very well when you have nobody else to distract you.
Mm-hmm.
But so I used to, like, my mind, I'm always thinking, and I was like, why in Ethiopia, the calendar is 7 years behind, right? The Orthodox calendar is 7 years behind the Roman calendar.
I think the Mayan calendar is too, by the way.
Yeah.
And the end of the world. Remember they talk about the end of the world or whatever?
Yeah. And
now
I thought, seriously, I thought it was going to be this year because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're actually about to enter that age of Aquarius. Age of enlightenment, and people are like, well, why would it be? It couldn't be that, because why would it be so far off? Because Mayans didn't have leap years, duh.
So also the Ethiopian calendar, right? Right now in Ethiopia, it's 2013.
So it would make, oh shit, it seems like y'all using the same calendar.
Yeah,
bro, that's crazy. Bro, how you have the same calendar from a culture across the world, bro? That's crazy. Right. Sorry, bro. Life is crazy. Life's crazy.
Hold on, it gets a little bit more. So then I said, why would the Romans push back or push up the calendar by 7 years? Right? How many years is a light year?
I don't know.
7 years.
Okay.
Right? So in theory, if there was a creator that's ahead of us, it would be 7 years ahead of us. Just, indulge me on this one if you're an atheist. I'm not trying to preach to you, right? So imagine it's the Matrix. Like, imagine there's an author that wrote everything out already, 7 years ahead, right? And then the people that are written about says, you know what, we could be gods too. We're going to push up the calendar about 7 years and catch up to God. You know what I'm saying? So that is most likely why they pushed it up by 7 years. Why else would they have pushed back or pushed up the calendar by 7 years? And why specifically 7 years? So they're basically saying we and the Romans, this Eurocentric power, we're 7 years ahead of everyone else, and we're catching up to powers that you don't understand. The rest of you are just mere earthlings. We're ahead of you, So really, if you look at it that way, it's still 2013 right now. They just artificially. If I got on a scale and it said that I weigh 205 pounds, let's say, and then I jiggered the scale to add on 7 pounds, and I get on it, and I'm 7 pounds less because of it. Have I lost weight? You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing.
The energy hasn't changed. The universe hasn't changed.
Everything is the same. It's just that they artificially. It's like Wall Street. they do all this, artificial playing around with numbers and stuff. But at the end of the day, the underlying economy is the underlying economy. You can't borrow yourself out of debt, right? Except they try to do that all the time. But at the end of the day, the debt is the debt, you know. But anyways, I'm kind of thinking twice about that too.
Man,
To be able to,
that's wild. That's wild. That
yeah,
it's funny because I literally just came. So I was looking into the age of Aquarius mostly because of politics, right? I'm seeing all this stuff unfold, and I'm like, yo, this shit cannot be coincidence. And then once again, for all my astrologers, literally all the planets were in retrograde at the exact same time a couple months ago, which hadn't happened in like 1,000 years or something like that. And then I'm like, man, that's a weird coincidence. And then everything, so I always go back to the Bible. And it's not because I'm a Christian, it's at least in a traditional religious sense. I believe that like everyone should try to live as Jesus did. Because like if everyone lived like that, then life would be just like a way better thing. But I always go back to the Bible because I always believe it was a good philosophical tool to study history. And hold up the myth to what is real and compare it to all the other ways that the different cultures interpret it. So I started looking into Revelations, and I thought to myself, like, hold up, what?
Oh, me too. Yo, Revelations is no joke. I'm sorry,
bro. I got like this weird, like the feeling I got when I was a kid, because we're conditioned as Christians when we're kids to think that Revelations is like, it's scary, like don't be bad, right? But then you think about, hold up, that's not what Revelation really means. The word revelation means like a revelation. It's something you learn something new
to reveal.
It's a good
lies.
thing. Yeah, it's a good thing.
To reveal. If I'm trying to reveal all the BS you've been told us, and I'm like, I'm going to reveal the truth to you. That's not a bad thing. It's only a bad thing for the people that have been lying, you know.
But so I started doing research on like on Revelations, what it said. Fun fact, the signs are third of the sea life is going to be gone. We're almost exactly the third of the sea life extinct. Pestilence and your crops are going to be poisoned and disease. Oh, Monsanto, we don't got clean food no more, at least in the States. The earth will be scorched, referring to global warming. The sun will be covered in smog, referring to climate change and pollution, and all those things are happening right now. And I'm like, bro, this is weird. When was Jesus born again? So I'm sorry, like at least based off of what people say, almost exactly about 2,000 years ago, almost exactly. And I'm like, hold up. So when did the age of the Aquarius start again? Like, right now. Okay, so what was the age before this? The age of the Pisces. What's Jesus' symbol? The fish. And the age of the Pisces is supposed to be an age of dogma and faith base and blind loyalty. And it's, the universe goes through these things because like based off of what's going on at the time, like that's what is needed to get you through. You don't got the internet to check everything. You couldn't, you know what I'm saying? There wasn't a lot of time to debate literally everything in order for society to progress. But now we're in the age of enlightenment, and what we've been seeing in politics is that the most savvy, the most conniving people, the people who've been able to deceive with their words forever, are at a loss because they can say something and people are like, that's not true. Here, right here. It's not true. You're a liar. And I'm gonna show my friends, you're a liar. And they're like, well, no, what I really meant was da-da-da-da. That's also a lie. See, right here, look. And then they freak out, they overcorrect, and then we see that too. And so now every single move they were used to being able to say something and then, all right, I'm the president, I'm the congressperson, I'm CNN anchor, I'm Fox News. Believe me, because we've just left the era of dogma. But now that we're coming into this age of enlightenment, it's like, now nothing you say. I mean, yeah, some people are kind of still stuck in the old way, but it's because a lot of people who are still stuck in the old mindset, in the old era, have benefited so much from the old era, they don't want it to end. That's exactly what it is. But it doesn't matter. It's coming regardless. But like I said, it's just for me being as involved in politics as I am, like I couldn't like ignore what I feel like a lot of people are kind of sensing, which is like something's about to go down. I don't know what it is, but it's about to go down. And I think that the Bible was able to use those very specific traits to describe like the end of a world, but almost the rebirth of a world, and they call it Revelations because these are the factors that take place. It would be obvious too. okay, maybe the farmer can ignore the fisherman's plight because I'm a farmer. What is that? What is your fish being,
But when they get tied in together.
Yeah, but now both my crops are being poisoned.
Right.
And now the fish are killed too. Well, let me go meet with this fisherman real quick so we can figure out what to do about this.
And that's what they're scared about, right? So can we go down the wormhole, the rabbit hole a little bit? You're not afraid of rabbit
I'm all about
holes,
rabbit holes. Go
ahead. No, this gets to be trippy. So I was thinking, like these elections are not as
hold up, real quick before we continue. For those of you who just came here, this conversation started because we were talking about Obama's name actually means bent blessings. Barack means bent. Oh, excuse me, blessings, and Obama actually means like to bend or bending. So, and we were talking about how important the impact of your name can be. So that's how we arrived at this rabbit hole. But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, by the way, I just looked at Obama is a common Luau surname. Obama means to lean or bend, and Luau, right? And then in Japanese also has a meaning, which is in Japanese it means little beach, as in like beach, like water beach.
Yeah, he's been at the beach, all right.
I don't know why I find that to be funny, but I do. But no, Luau though it means to lean or to bend. So basically to bend. His name became to bend his blessings. But so now the tricky part is this: these elections are not. There's a rhythm and flow to every election. So what do I mean by that? So let's go back to 1990. You have Bush. The senior Bush. Mm-hmm. He was inarticulate, and his popularity after the Iraq War started to wane. So what does that open up the pathway for? Well, somebody that's younger, that's very articulate, charming, charisma, Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Right? 8 years of Bill Clinton, his charisma that has not turned into a liability. He's a philanderer. People see him as a liar and as untrustworthy. So what do we need? What's the answer for 8 years of that? Well, somebody that's married, doesn't have any type of blemish to his name when it comes to marriage, conservative, and whereas Clinton was articulate and charismatic, complete opposite with Bush.
He played the saxophone. Yeah, we remember.
Yeah, played this. Yeah, and Bush, meanwhile, was mangling the English language, and he just articulate was the last thing that you would think of when you think of Bush.
No, he was like the man, like the working man's man. Like that's why they liked him at first. Yeah.
So 8 years of that, 8 years of bombing countries away, but really 8 years of his just brand. Presidents are brands. They're nothing else. 8 years of his brand, they said, oh, so we need something that's drastically different. And at that time, the image of America was so bad that they needed an image makeover. Well, what's the image makeover that's more drastic than the complete opposite of Bush? Who would that be? Oh, let's see. Bush was inarticulate. Well, we'll find the most articulate man that we can find. Bush is white. We'll find a black man. Bush is conservative.
Somebody not only just black, not like a Cory Booker black, but like someone who can at least feign like they can identify with the culture of African Americans.
Yes. So 8 years later, now we have Obama. So if you see the pattern,
it's important to say, said he was not going to run. Ever since maybe 2003, 2004, when they were trying to tell everybody, oh, this dude, he should run. He was like, no, I'm not doing it. No.
Right.
Oh, I'm running for president. Just kidding.
That's part of their lies. That's what they do. So it's almost like, let me not use this analogy. Anyways, let's keep moving.
Because the first question would have been, how can a junior senator run for president? What?
Right.
This whole Kamala thing, that's not normal. What Obama and Kamala did is not normal.
But that's the thing, though. That's part of the deception because he became so Bush was legacy. Well, what's the complete opposite of legacy? Well, a freshman senator from Chicago. These things are not as the only thing that threw me off is this year because I was like, I thought they were going to go with somebody completely different than Trump, right? Because everything up until the past 20 years has been like a bipolar polarities going back and forth.
Well, that's because Trump is an anomaly and almost like an anomaly in the matrix. Like I don't want to say he's like Agent Smith because I think that Smith is like something completely different in the Matrix, but like he is a wrench almost. Like, remember the Merovingian?
What if he's playing it? So can I add on to that?
Go ahead.
What if that's exactly why he was. Look, from my perspective, 4 years of Trump, and his just everything that he touches outside of his base becomes unpopular, right?
Yeah.
So this man was not that way not too long ago. He's an articulate man. He's not.
I know when he was in early 2000s, he was much more articulate than what he portrayed.
Yeah, he was. So this is he's putting on a persona like a wrestling. So he puts on a persona to make they call it isolationism, where when you don't attack other countries that didn't attack us, that's not isolationism. That's called decency. That's called morality. That's following the rule of law. Mm-hmm. But they call his brand. They attach that to him now. Well, if he's saying let's get out of Afghanistan, there has to be a bad thing, yeah, right? Remember when?
No, you said it has to be a battle.
Huh?
You say it has to be a battle?
No, it has to be a bad thing. Whatever he touches.
Oh, yeah, everything he said. Yeah, CNN literally did an article criticizing him for pulling out of Afghanistan. Yeah.
Right. So he says Afghanistan, he's going to pull out. They say it's bad. And the media is doing this on purpose, but it's just sad when people that were protesting against the Iraq war not too long ago are now castigating him for trying to say that he's going to pull out. Mm. So he comes on board to then basically turn everything that we would otherwise want. We don't want. How many people want to be globalized? PPP. I don't. Do you, Niko?
Yeah. Who wanted peace between North and South Korea? Literally everyone but the establishment. Right. And now all of a sudden, peace between North and South Korea. Like talking to somebody who's considered a psychopath and getting him to cross into South Korea for the first time. And saying like, look, I don't know what's going on in America, but we got to at least squash this. At least us. Right. And people are like, that's horrible.
Right.
He's ingratiating himself with dictators and fashion. Like, hold on. I thought this was
negotiations. What if that was the purpose? For him to basically make everything that could otherwise be a rational decision into something to be vilified, right?
See, but I think that was an adjustment that had to be made, and I'm explaining to you why. Because ain't nothing nobody can say to convince me that Hillary wasn't supposed to be up next. You talking about Harvey Weinstein connections, the Epstein connections, and in a lot of ways you could even say, because it's almost like kind of clear that in a lot of ways the Democratic Party was being set up since the late 80s and 90s to be like the only party in a sense that ever had a chance. And you can almost say in a lot of ways that Hillary was at the time viewed as like the anti-Obama, like you were saying, because now we're just kind of like, we're getting smaller and smaller into our niche because we want people to basically only focus on these binary choices. We get to the point where I'm not even going to consider what Republicans are saying. Right. And that's kind of like damn near where we're at right now. But
that's the whole point.
But with Trump, what used to be a Democrat, of course we know, but when he ran, no one took him seriously. And then you had a Bush running, and everyone he was being coordinated, and it didn't matter. And then you see him run through the Republican primary while the Republicans are simultaneously trying to sabotage him, which was like, why y'all sabotaging him for? He's one of y'all. And they're like, nah, why? And then he comes out against TPP. That is definitely a globalist policy, right? He tries to pull out of Syria when he first got in, and they bombed it because there was a chemical weapon attack, right? The moment that he said he's going to put a CIA into Syria, there's a chemical weapon, and it got debunked. There was never one. But that was what they did. So you got the intelligence community actively fighting against him. And the moment that your intelligence community actively fights against the president may not be altruistic in any way. However, what it does mean at the very bare minimum is that he may not necessarily be on our side, but he's not on their side. And he was like a unidentified variable that threw everything off, because like Kamala was clearly supposed to be the president now. Like they said in 2017, she's going to be the president because what did you say? You go for the opposite. But
she effectively is the president. I mean, dude.
Yeah,
right?
But what I'm saying is, but they weren't planning on having to push her in through, because it's still a matter of, can she win election again? When she got kicked out the race, she had 2% support amongst black people. You know what I'm saying? So like, this ain't Obama. This woman is unpopular, and they're having to overcorrect because at the very bare minimum, Trump he doesn't make decisions based off of what the establishment want. He doesn't make decisions based off of what the Republicans want. He don't make them based off of what the Democrats want. It's all ego, exclusively ego, and nothing else. And when somebody is like that and wealthy and has popularity, and you may not have made the structural changes needed to stop him, then what if these type of things can happen? Almost like how Kennedy, his flip to being just staunchly anti-imperialist, going toe-to-toe with the CIA, like that wasn't expected from a Kennedy. That wasn't expected.
But hold on, Niko, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know you're a fan of history. It was Eisenhower, I think it was, or Truman. I think it was Truman.
Eisenhower talking about war in the military-industrial complex?
No. Truman said the White House is the biggest jail in the world, right?
It makes sense from him, especially. I say it makes sense from him, especially.
Yeah. So then JFK maybe might have deviated from the script, and you see how that ended.
Yeah.
Obama, and when he first got into office, he used to have he was addicted to his BlackBerry. It made him give it up, right?
Yeah, until the very, very end, where they could weaponize it to try to get everything.
And he fought against that. So then why would Trump all of a sudden be able to upset precedents that have basically kneecapped presidents or handcuffed them for ages?
But he has been handcuffed. He has been handcuffed in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah, but not really. So no, yes and no. I agree with you. Yes.
Man, the man just had to fire a bunch of people from the Pentagon because he tried to pull out of Afghanistan, and they basically were bullshitting. And then they passed a regulation that said that the Pentagon doesn't have to tell Trump how many troops are there. Like,
right. I agree with you.
And then then he hired someone. Literally, he just hired an advisor that his whole job is to go around making sure we get out of Afghanistan and Syria and firing anybody who doesn't want to do that. And that's why CNN attacked him. And so what?
He still has.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean.
No, I'm just saying, like, once it's not really a matter of liking Trump, disliking Trump, because most people know I don't like Trump. But I also recognize like motives, and Trump's motive is like unique in a lot of ways when it comes to most, or as compared to most presidents, because his only motive is himself and his family and his brand. Like that's basically it. And he reacts so much to his audience in ways that we really have never seen another president do in a kind of genuine way. Genuine not being good because of who his audience a lot of the times is. But like he pivots, like even now, the big tech conversation. Like you would have thought that Democrats would have been on that based off of the overreaching and the left is supposed to be anti-surveillance, but clearly that's not the case anymore. But Trump is correct on his conversations about big tech. Like, and for him to be telling the world this massive platform, they're not for you, they're hiding stuff, they're like that's.
But guess what? By him doing that, he's making that into an unpopular thing. That's the whole point.
Oh, yeah, but once again, that's a reaction. Except for most people do still feel like that, right? Most people do feel like big tech is overreaching. A lot of people's livelihoods have been destroyed by big tech. Tulsi feels the same way, so to your argument, the other side of that is, but if Tulsi said something, they tried to use the same strategy to make everything that Tulsi says unpopular. So would you say, they tried to plan to get Tulsi in? So why did they try to drag her just like they dragged Trump? The difference is Tulsi didn't have a Fox News to protect her during the primary. Because Fox News Entertainment. But his independent media coalition is fucking insane.
If I could respond to that, Niko, I guess the only thing I would say is this. This man came into DC saying that he's going to clean the swamp, and he never did. Everything that he said he was going to do, he never did. He said he was going to be against the deep state. He didn't do anything about it. Like nothing.
I don't like the absolute though. I can't say he didn't do anything, and I can't say he didn't try in some cases.
He was a window dressing.
Bruh, he pulled half the troops out of Afghanistan and is trying to pull out the rest right now. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't pretend he didn't do, in the context of this conversation, we can't pretend like he didn't do anything so we can work backwards from our conclusion that he was plan to be put in there, because like Dominions, for example, Dominions voting systems that have been put in almost every 28 states now. Georgia all of a sudden had their rollout of the Dominion voting system this election specifically. And oh, what a surprise. For the first time in like a half a century, Georgia goes blue. And people are like, oh, it's because they just hated Trump so much. Probably not. Because what people really don't know, and this is the part that I always get into on my show, because people get so focused on this general election, they don't be like, well, hold on. When the hell did these Dominion voting systems get here? And if you start looking at when they started arriving, you start to see the events that were happening at the time. So what people don't know is it's because of Bernie. It was originally because of Bernie and partially because of Trump. Because Bernie was beat Hillary's ass in a lot of states, mostly caucus states, in the states that had verified paper ballots, right? Fast forward. People don't know this because like the pandemic kind of hit, and so everything got kind of messed up. But almost every caucus state except for 2 switched to these Dominion voting systems, or ES&S, which is also trash. But these Dominion voting systems that are they're proprietary software, which means we can't get access to them without a federal court order, and even that's almost impossible to get. Then on top of that, they don't have verified paper backups. It's almost impossible to audit them. And guess what? Guess who sits on Dominion? He's on executive board Dominion. One of Obama's alum. He's Obama alum, Clinton alum, and on ES&S, which is Election Systems and Software, the vice chair of the Joe Biden Foundation. So the number 1 and number 2 election systems in the country, all of a sudden, they were already prominent before, but they took off in a way that had never happened. And the Democratic apparatus has control over both of them. And it happened right after 2016.
So I don't just.
So why not do that in 2013, 2014? If you know Trump is coming and he's playing, so why not implement all these softwares to make sure he gets in? The Republicans created a dossier to cheat Trump, and the Hillary and the Democrats used the dossier. It was a fake dossier, but they used it to try and lie and undermine Trump, which they could have just said the real stuff he was doing, but they're also guilty of it too, so they couldn't say that. But
right. So
go ahead.
Can I respond to that, Niko? For me, all that, I'm not discounting what you're saying. Those are minor riggings when the whole thing is rigged between Democrats and Republicans. So the outcome is predetermined between these two parties. It's like, you have a truck and the wheel has fallen off, and we're focusing on the, the window, the rear mirror. And meanwhile, you're driving down a street with one tire gone, right? So that in that way, this so-called democracy wars, when these two factions, Republicans and Democrats, collude and prevent from other parties from participating, other people from. This is not a democracy. If I give you a choice between spam and noodles, right, and I'm like, hey, you could have whatever you could eat from this buffet of spam and noodles. Is that really a buffet?
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
100%. You know what I'm saying? So for me, like, I'm not going to be in a position to defend nor denigrate Democrats nor Republicans. So
all we really have is like a bicameral dictatorship.
Yeah, it is.
Really
and so if you go trace back the history of the Magna Carta, it was never about the people. It was about the aristocrats versus the kings. And the people will always last considerations. And so we still to this day are yearning to have a voice, and we don't have a voice. So I don't care. Like the old me would have cared. I'm not saying this to in any way that diminish what you're saying, Niko. Mm-hmm. I don't care what state goes red or blue. And the mere fact that we call these states red state and blue state, it's gang conversations. This is tribalism on steroids. Where, like in Ethiopia right now, the land where I was born, it's a group called the TPLF came into power, and they said, we can't. 5% of the population cannot rule 95% of the population. So they reverted to the same tactics as the South African government. It hit me recently that apartheid was never about keeping blacks apart from whites. It was not about that. That was just a benefit. It was not the function, the function of the whole thing. The function was to keep black people apart from black people.
It was to keep black people from what?
Bantustan. Bantu stands for the Kathas, the Zulus, the Lesothos, and I think 6, 7 other Bantustans, right? Homelands.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bantustans means homelands. So you go into their homes, into their nation. You kick them to the ghettos, like Gaza, and then you tell them, "Hey, this Gaza is for you, Zulus. This Gaza is for you,"
Mm-hmm.
and then you incite tribal warfare. And this one, if you look at some of the most heinous acts of violence, it was not even committed by the South African government. It was blacks versus blacks. This is what happens when you lock people up into ghettos, and then you incite them, you take away all their hope, and then you throw them crumbs and say, "Hey, fight over that crumb." You know.
So
So
philosophically,
in
I
this,
agree, but in the specific case of South Africa, I believe that could be actually more applied to the U.S., but in and even like Central and South America, especially like places like Brazil. But in South Africa, Cecil Rhodes actually was using South Africa as a test run to see if he could incorporate not only Africa but the rest of the world into like British, like he wanted specifically British Anglo culture to
right,
dominate, which is
right,
like
right.
why, for example, in South Africa, despite like I mean England has colonized a lot of countries, right?
Of course,
It's like
they're the
even
most
India,
powerful in the
and
world. It's
in
not
the
even close.
colonization that happened in India was deep rooted. But
Yeah,
Indians don't speak with the British accent. South Africans still, for a lot of them,
yeah.
still speak with a British accent,
Of course,
and
and Kenyans too.
but that was because
Yeah.
specifically Cecil Rhodes and his little team of douchebags. Rothschild was one of them. There's a few of them, but he set out on that mission to do that. And I just wanted to clarify in the case of South Africa because I think that might have been byproducts, but it's also because Cecil Rhodes had what he saw slavery and Jim Crow and was able to successfully implement a lot of those methods in South Africa.
Right. But I guess that's the thing, though. So apartheid was part of the Boers, the Afrikaners, whatever you want to call them. They came up with this concept. So what we said, I don't think they're necessarily in disagreement.
It's funny they call themselves
Uh,
Afrikaners. That's just funny to me. Like, bro, you live in Africa. You're
no,
African. No, I'm white though. It's
so
different. That's really what they're saying, right? If we being real, I'm white though. It's different.
no, but so I guess to kind of piggyback to Ethiopia, right? And why the TPLF implemented the same policies that the Afghan government implemented in South Africa.
Hmm.
They said, okay, well, you have the Oromo tribe, you have the Amhara tribe, you have the Tigrayans, you have the Somalis. And there's like 66 tribes in Ethiopia.
Oh wow, I didn't
The
know that.
only way that, yeah, the only way that 5% of the population, and it's not an accident. In South Africa, the whites were considered, I think, it was 5% of the population, right?
Mm.
So 5% or 1%. 1% could rule 99%. It's the same way. How do you do it? By dividing them based on identity, by dividing them based on tribe. So that's what they did in Ethiopia. They created homelands for the Oromos, they created homelands for the Amaras, they created with the different flags, right? And then you unleash demagogues that weaponize identity politics, that weaponize grievances, not with the intention of healing, but with the intention of inciting people to fight amongst each other. That's what's going on in Ethiopia right now. I never realized the same playbook is being used in America. And it has been used in America since the Civil War and even before that. And even the Civil War, vast majority of the white people that fought in the South, they were dirt poor.
Yeah.
Why would
The
dirt
vast majority
poor?
that fought in the North were dirt poor.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, exactly. But it just bothers me more that Southerners were fighting to defend a system that was oppressing them too. If you're getting paid a penny an hour, the other person is getting paid zero. Of course, the person that's getting paid zero and being whipped and hung has it worse. But you getting paid a penny an hour. So what you're not, except what they did was, yeah, I'm getting paid a penny an hour, but at least I'm not them. You know what I'm saying? Which is how that tribalism worked in Africa too.
In the Civil War, you could say they obviously divided them into North and South, but even with the North, it was now y'all not American because y'all Confederate now.
Yeah.
Now
right.
it's America versus that rebel country over there.
Yeah.
It was like, we were talking about it earlier. Like, yeah, slavery was a big part of it because of like it was there and it was so massive. But like there were so many pieces that had to come into play for the war to even pop off, especially back then. Cause like, like how you gonna get support for a war when like we don't even, all of us don't know each other? Like I could never ever leave my little 50-person town to find some type of relationship and association and connection to somebody in another state, let alone feel that camaraderie so that we feel connected enough to attack and go to war in my own country, unless you make it country versus country.
Yeah.
Right.
So country versus country, and then community versus community. Mm-hmm. Basically,
culture versus
politics.
culture.
Yeah. So when I say identity politics, I'm not talking about the way that the Republicans are talking about it, because they're racist about it. They try to make it seem like only Democrats are doing this, and it's a minority versus other.
Yeah, no, Republicans were the ones who started identity politics.
Right. Yeah. So it's being done against all of us, and you only know it when it's being done against somebody else, not you. Right? Mm-hmm. You only know when somebody's hoodwinking, when you're not the person of the hoodwinking. Because if not, the hood is over your wink. That's why it's called the hoodwinking. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't see. And that same thing is being done. Civil War, and it's been going on since then. And always, and I wrote an article not too long ago. If you go to my website, let me do a quick plug, www.guillonjournal.com, where I know that the title was a little bit like inflammatory, but it said using Black people, quote unquote Black people, as wedge issues.
So now you want to use the word Black? No, I'm playing with you.
I use quote marks though. That's why.
Why'd you do that? Why? Because you need to do that to get your point across. Too.
Go ahead. Seriously, it's so hard because you can't, like, somebody told me a long time ago, once your eyes open, you can't close it back up. So I don't know. It's just hard. You know what I'm saying? Like how do you disavow something without necessarily disavowing the kinship that you have with other folks? It's hard. And this is exactly what the purpose of labels, of these labels. It locks you up. But that said, in that article, I noted that for too long, the pains of African Americans have been used by Democrats specifically, not to necessarily address the issues, but to use us as a wedge issue in order to scare the other side.
Yeah.
Right. So they turned us into a bogeyman. And that I know there's a lot of things that I say that people initially, if you just look at, for example, there was an article I wrote where I put, "We're not Black," right? If you don't take the time to actually understand why I'm saying that, then you're gonna be like, "Well, this sellout," you're gonna call me whatever. But things taken out of context could take on a meaning of its own, right? But if you actually look at what I'm saying, there's a rationale to these things. And so in that same way, these Democrats, when they pretend like they're doing, X, Y, and Z, they're for you. What they're doing is they're turning us into the bogeyman so that it can scare the white people on the other side. And so Republicans benefit, and on the flip side, Republicans also we turn Republicans into bogeyman. So bogeyman versus bogeyman, hustle versus hustle, and
make it so that you don't ever vote for them at all.
Yeah. And it creates a perpetual friction where both sides are fighting against each other. Meanwhile, and Niko, I know you know this, Republicans and Democrats in D.C. party together, they sleep together, drink together,
they campaign together.
They do everything
the
together.
Democrats who win a lot of times have former Republican campaign, or not former, current Republican campaign strategists who tell them everything that the Republicans are going to do to try to beat them.
Yeah. So even Obama, he came in initially. Remember how he was pretending to be anti-Bush? Look at them now; they're partying
best
together.
Friends. Go take that vaccine together, man. You gonna line up with them? Obama taking the vaccine's not going. You don't feel safe.
Okay. Just know this: when you see a drum beat and everyone's marching one direction, I learned a long time ago to pause and observe. That's all I'll say about that. You know who the only ones are that get marched in one direction? Do you know the only animals that do that? Lemmings and sheep.
Yep.
You know what happens to lemmings, and you know what happens to sheep? Anyways, I'll let you fill in the blanks on that one. But that said, so going back, into. There's something I wanted to mention specifically, but I think I just lost my train of thought about that. Um,
You're talking about your
uh,
article.
no, but no, we're just talking about like the identity of it and how we, Democrats and pretend like they use it as
Create the
wedge issues,
boogeyman.
right?
Yeah.
So and so part of that, oh, that's what it was because I knew it. It was I was going to touch on a topic that's the third rail. I want to touch it now because that's what I do. Um, Black Lives Matter, right? There's Black Lives Matter in terms of people that affiliate with that. I have no beef with them.
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter, the organization, I have every beef with them. Every beef with them.
Yeah,
If you
me
know
too.
the
That's
three
100%.
founders,
That's my exact stance.
if you know
Oh,
the
you
three
know what you gotta tell
founders,
people? It's you say black. I don't have the BLM, the slogan. I 100% support. In the
right,
movement, BLM, the 501c4 nonprofit organization, I have every
right.
problem with. Yes, 100%.
Which, by the way, if you go to the website, it says they're basically a mouthpiece of the Democrat Party.
Yep. Oh, they
Um,
donated all their
and
funding this year to the Democratic Party.
right, right, yeah, yeah. And if you look at the three founders, I forgot their names. They got paid by George Soros. If you know nothing about George Soros, when he goes around financing movements around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and none of those movements have ended well for the people. It always ends up in strife and civil war.
Mm-hmm.
So his purpose is not altruistic; it's to create division and strife. And anytime billionaires give money to a movement, that's when your antenna should go up. When Twitter gives a BLM an emoji, your antenna should go up. Why? When mainstream media latches onto that narrative, why? You know why? Because we end up being used as a wedge issue. We get turned into a wedge issue. We become the bogeyman that incites fear on the other side. So instead of addressing the issues, we become our pains become fodder for cable news where
Mm-hmm.
nothing gets done. And the only way that you can affect change in America or in any country is if you have a broad coalition that transcends our differences. Where people say, hey, listen, my plight is tied in with the plight of this other man. And that's when change might be possible. As long as this country is shattered into the ghettos of all these different identities. And when I say ghetto, by the way, just to
You mean the
clarify,
mental
ghetto,
ghettos?
yeah, ghetto was what the Nazis locked up the Jews back in the 1930s behind the ghettos.
Mm-hmm.
And ghetto like literally means wall. So I know a lot of times people now have extrapolate that or conflate that with like racism, like she's ghetto. It's not that. Ghetto literally means a prison. It's a wall. So that Gaza is a ghetto.
Yeah.
Anytime you build a wall and lock people up behind a wall, that's a ghetto, and that speaks to some people. Remember I said invert the pain or revert the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Some people chose to revert to pain and pass on the pain that they felt, and it saddens me for that. But all that said, we have all these different ghettos of Tea Party, BLM, all these different identities being created all the time, and then you keep they elevate these spokespeople. If I wanted to do it, it's easy. If I wanted to, if fame and money were my objectives, I would just stick to the script and go on either Fox News or MSNBC and talk against those people. Those people are
Man, I would have
you know what I'm saying?
endorsed Bernie this year because man, look, you know how much money I could have made off of that? You have no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. Somebody did. Somebody made a lot of money doing it.
Bro, there's millionaires and borderline millionaires, like
Right.
YouTube people that just from kissing Bernie's ass.
Yeah.
What I no, maybe more specifically, uncritically kissing his ass. I want to say because supporting the man and understanding his flaws is one thing.
Including Bernie himself. That's why, I almost fell for Bernie at one point, and I said, "Oh nope, antenna. I've already been Obama. I'm not about to get Obama again." You know what
Hey,
I'm saying? And when he refused to call what happened in 2016 a farce, and instead jumped on the Russian narrative, I said, "What a joke."
I know,
And he
man.
went back with a second kick of the mule, the second kick of the donkey, got kicked again.
Oh
Like
man.
some people will I wanted to get kicked over and over again as long as they have the proximity of power. And he has that. He's not willing to lose that. But yeah, so it's just for us and for me. By the way, let me tell you a quick little uh, sideway I guess, pivot for a second. The reason that I got to this level of understanding, I would not say enlightenment because that's arrogance. Nobody's enlightened. It's a continual process of learning in
No,
life.
what you mean? You can always be enlightened. You just not. It's not as bright as
Okay.
everybody else's. That's all.
Well, as enlightenment, you don't arrive at enlightenment though. It's a process. Even when you learn something new, you still keep learning. You don't stop learning. It's not a destination.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess by technical definition, you are correct. You can't if it's enlightened, you're technically speaking past tense as
Right,
if you already
enlightenment.
completed it.
Right.
Yes. All
Yeah.
right, writer. All right, English major, writer, whatever.
I used to get joked about that, but now I look at that as a badge of honor, so I don't get mad about it. I used to dumb myself down just to fit in.
Oh man. Look, that's a whole different video. Go ahead.
Yeah. But no, so the reason that I went from being the same person that used to talk about white privilege and vilify white people, white privilege and vilify white people, I really thought that the source of conflict was between black and white, right? And I used to vilify Republicans, and we used to call them I forgot all these insults. I used to come up with insults. I used to, whatever gift that I have in terms of being able to write, I used to just love to do that in terms of just bashing people and using little cute little puns.
Man,
Man,
yeah,
anyway,
you would have been a good consultant to just like come up with
I,
one liners for you.
I was a consultant. I used to work at Booz Allen Hamilton.
Oh,
Long story. You know, the same, what do you call it? The same, not clearance level, but the same title that Snowden had. He was an associate at Booz Allen Hamilton.
mm-hmm.
I was an associate at Booz Allen Hamilton.
Oh
I was a
wow.
long time. So he worked at NSA. I worked at the Pentagon. Like I was just
Mm.
like basically I was a project manager. I was getting paid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But nothing to the level. He had like levels of clearances that the average human being can't even like comprehend. Like you know what I'm saying? Whereas I was just
So crazy you go to that from that to homeless, man. That's crazy.
yeah. So that's what I was going to get to. In 2015, so Busan went they went public, right? As in they went private. When the company says we went public, that really they're
Means
saying that
we went super private. Actually, that's what it really means.
yeah.
We don't give a shit about what any of y'all say except for these 18 people, these shareholders in this board.
Right, yeah. It's just euphemisms are no joke, yo. It's the power of words. But before when they're private, you could be they call it being on the beach. As in, if you got off a contract, you could be like literally chilling for 6 months until they find you a new position.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because they're not being hijacked or worried about meeting profit PE ratios and all that kind of stuff, right? Uh, all they're looking at is the long-term viability and whether or not their workers are okay. If that means they're making 10% return on investment year over year, good to go. That's not how Wall Street works. If you make 10% this year, you better make 11% next year, or else you're out the door,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're incentivizing greed, like cancerous greed. That's why it was killing our planet. Because any business person should be able to say, "Hey, I want to make 15% profit. I'm good. I could take care. I could have a nice life. I could take my kids. I could pass on my wealth to future generations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be okay with being a millionaire." But that's not how Wall Street works or corporations work. They Because you have these shareholders, who most of those shareholders are institutional, they're not the average American. There's a continuous drive to increase profits at any cost,
Mm-hmm.
at any cost. So then Busan, so I'm a
Specifically
real life,
short-term profits, specifically,
yeah,
which leads
short
to
term.
dumb decisions long-term.
Yeah, there's no long term at all because if you could be you could set up a company that would do amazing things in 10 years. If you don't show profits within a year or two, you're out the door, right? So I'm a real life example of that in terms of what happened because before then, I would roll off a contract and then maybe 3-4 weeks would pass, and then I'll find another contract. Life of a consultant. All of a sudden, you went public. You have 2 weeks to find another contract. If you don't, you're out the door,
Oh wow.
right? I started working there in 2006. I worked there for 8 years. And on the eighth year, I rolled off a contract. They went public, I think, in 2012. On the eighth year, I rolled off a contract. I had 2 weeks, except That was right around the time when there was a government shutdown or something like that, a
Furlough, the
furlough.
furlough, yep. During the ACA and the but, yeah, yeah.
I couldn't find another contract, so I was out the door. Right?
Even though they want the you were working for the government, right? Basically,
Yeah.
Did they not get the memo? What?
Yeah.
They was looking for an excuse, honestly.
Greed, no, it's greed. So as long as you're billable as a consultant, everything's based on billable. If I'm making $110,000 a year, right, which is roughly what I was making back then, but Buzan's making 3 times as much. They're making $350 a year off me, right? It's pimping me basically.
100%.
So,
yes.
So as long as I'm bringing money, they don't care what I do. I could be sitting down doing nothing but watching. Hypothetically, I could be watching porn the whole day. They don't care as long as
on that 14th day you got a contract, you're good.
Right, exactly. So, but when the freeze happened, it was very hard to find a position. So I got let go, right? And up until that point, all I did my whole life was work, right? When I was in college, I worked 2 or 3 jobs at a time, and most of the time, I always thought I was compared to my father, I didn't think I was that enterprising or that hardworking. I used to condemn myself. I'm like, man, I can never work like the way that my dad used. So my dad used to drive a taxi concurrently while working at the post office, and then he would get off that and go work another job. You know what I'm saying? So for my gauge of what somebody that's productive in life is that level of work. So I used to always look at myself in a certain way, thinking that I can't measure up to my dad. But when I look back at it, I worked my ass off my whole life. I never really took a vacation. So I told myself, I'm going to take a vacation. I'm going to take an extent. I'm going to just take this year off. I looked at my 401k. I was like, I'm good.
I'm all right.
Right, I'm good. So I was like, I'm going to spend this whole year just living the life. You know what happens when you live the life too much? You get distracted.
A little bit.
And I got distracted. And then ultimately, I had some money left over. I decided to open up a business in DC with the wrong people, and next thing I know, I'm in South Carolina on the streets. Life comes at you like fast,
bruh.
You know. And once you're homeless, by the way, and unfortunately, I was mad at everyone in the world at that time, so I cut off relationship with everybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was like, I could take care of myself, right?
Yeah. By the way, that's diaspora shit too.
Seriously, man. And I look back at it and I'm blessed and grateful that I didn't go down the path of being bitter, because had that happened, I would not be talking to you right now, and I would not be sitting in that house right now. I would not be married right now, and I would not have a child, a son. That's the light of my life. It's only because I decided not to be bitter. I decided to forgive the people that scammed me in my business, a lot of other things that happened, I was like, it's okay. There's something else that's going to come. So if I could tell you a quick story, up until 2016, I was bitter the whole time, and then at that point, I went to a place called the Harvest Farm in Colorado. It was a community farm, right? One of my friends, she flew me out there. There was just, I'm gonna try to just, anyways. I got there with just a book bag and sweatpants, and I went to the shelter in Fort Collins, Colorado, and stayed there for the first day. And then you had to stay there for a week before you could maybe potentially go to the farm in Wellington, Colorado. And the reason I chose that place, by the way, the farm, was because in Ethiopia I wanted to be a farmer, and in Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, it was in the mountains. So farm, mountain, and then I've always had like some type of kinship or closeness to God. I don't know. I don't like to.
I mean, it's nature. You know, it's life. Basically, farming is creating life. You know.
Yeah. So for me, when I Googled, when I went to New York for like a week with my friend, and I Googled. I was like, I'm gonna move, and I Googled farm, mountain, Bible. And I came up with Wellington, Colorado, this place called Harvest Farm. That's the most important decision I made in my life, was just a random Google search. I had no idea what I was going to
Back
get
when
into.
Google
I
worked
had
like
no
it was
money.
supposed to. Yeah.
Huh?
So back when Google worked like it was supposed to.
Right, I know, right? Or maybe it was. Maybe somebody looked out for me at Google.
Mm.
you know. But that said, I arrived in Colorado with nothing nothing, and then I eventually transitioned to the farm. And on this farm, stayed there with this place for the most part is for people that are completely broken, dealing with addictions. Thank God I didn't deal with. I mean, I've had my partying days, but I've never really struggled with like addiction of alcohol
Mm-hmm.
or drugs. This place, for the most part, is a place for people that are addicts, but also for people that are homeless. So I went
Mm.
there. I lived on the farm for a year and a half, and I signed up to be a cook at the farm. So I was a chef, feeding, and I would wake up. The shift started at 3 o'clock in the morning and ended at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Woo.
All right, you know how much I was getting paid?
How much?
$7 a week,
Oh wow.
but
In
stayed there for
Colorado?
free.
Okay. But that cost living kind of high over there, man.
No, but hey, free place, free room and board, and free food.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So look at the options.
I'll take that
I'm a rational
$7.
human being.
All right, I'm gonna take this
you know?
$7 right now. All right, but I'm gonna ask for a raise later.
Well, I got a raise 3 months later. They gave us $10 a week.
All right. Damn.
And it's crazy when you think about it. I was making 6 figures in Booth Island to then be making $7 a week. It's just, it
Life
boggles
has a
the
way of
mind.
humbling you like that, man.
Yeah, yeah. But guess what? So in that process, and this year I was living. And I used to remember I would wake up every day plotting vengeance. Like I was like the guy from Account. What was his name? The guy that was locked up against his will. Uh, Les Miserables. Uh, I don't
Oh,
know if you
okay,
see
okay,
that.
okay.
So I was like that guy, just plotting revenge. And then one day, I would wash my clothes,
Mm-hmm.
and these are broken people, and broken people love to break other people, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I would wash my clothes, and somebody would take it out and just throw it all over the floor, right? And this happened 2 or 3 times. I was like, so then now my grievance is growing and my bitterness is growing. So on the fourth time this happened, I was like, I set my alarm. I said, all right, I'm gonna catch these MFers and the act, right? So I set my time and went back to the barracks, and I started reading a book, Thoreau, and fell asleep. Woke up 2 hours later. I ran to the laundry room thinking that my clothes are gonna be all over the floor again, and somebody folded it and stacked it for me,
Wow.
right? And I swear to you, that was the moment. It was like a seed that was planted in me. I was like, it just shifted my whole perspective. If that didn't happen, I swear to you, I think I would still be homeless right now. Because it
Mm.
just planted like a tiny, a mustard seed of hope, like in the goodness of human beings, was planted in the midst of all that anger and bitterness, right? And when that happened, and then I started talking to my chaplain every week, and he gave me a notebook. He was like, "I want you to write again," because he knew I love to write. And I cussed him out. I said, "But I can't. What am I supposed to write? What am I supposed to pontificate about? How beautiful these corners are? I cussed him out. He's like, just take it. And people that deal with like homeless people, they know to not lash back at people like because we're broken, we're hurting. Um, so he gave it to me. So I said one day I was like, okay, I have nothing better. So I started writing. So I wrote 100 pages of this book I've always wanted to write called The Invisible Ethiopian, modeled after The Invisible Man by Ellison. They're one of my favorite books. If you haven't read that, I highly recommend it. And it's about this African American man that's so light skinned he could fit in as either white or black. So he fit in nowhere. That was my story. So I was like, I'm gonna write a book one of these days. So I wrote 130 pages. I never finished it. I lost it, unfortunately.
Man, you know what?
But that,
Sometimes something needs to stay unfinished, man.
yeah, well,
Because it was about where you were then, not necessarily where you're trying to be.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it led me to this path, and I started writing again. And then one day, I'm gonna, if you Google memo to she, right, and memo, and then to she Gion. I wrote that. It was basically a poem extolling the, the strength of women, right? The one that values their strength, not by comparing it to us, but based on their strength. Like we live in a world where everything is trying to be compared
Competitive,
to
right?
like when it, right? But really, we all have our unique gifts in life, and we're not meant to emulate. So when women, like in fact, at the end I said, don't try to emulate us. We should be the ones that was trying to emulate you because it's our pride and our ego that's burning the world down, right?
Mm.
So that's
It
how we
really
have it.
is. It really is. People have no
Yeah.
idea. The ego is
So
is something for me like so I am a connoisseur of mushrooms, magic ones.
mm,
And the reason why is because the first, so funny enough, I just like kept saying like, man, I feel like I'm not really reaching my like potential as far as like understanding how the universe works and how the world works, and more specifically and most importantly how people work, because like
right.
my whole niche in politics, people think is like I'm like really good at politics. I'm like, no, I'm not really good at politics, but I do know people because of my experiences. Like when people were asking me, why are you going so hard on Bernie? Like when he like threw Tulsi under the bus on The View at one point, I was like, I know what this is. If you would throw your friend
mm,
under the bus who sacrificed their career for you, motherfucker, you don't even know my name. You will throw me under
mm,
the bus in a heartbeat. And look what happened. All that
mm.
sudden, and somebody said it best, right? If Bernie didn't have healthcare, you think he would have dropped out the race? Bruh, I was like, ooh, woo, my heart. But anyway, but the reason I bring that
Crazy.
up is because so when I did shrooms for the first time, it was like my ego was completely gone, like
Mm,
completely. And I was running through all of a sudden my perspective on why people were doing the things that they were doing wasn't based off of the perspective of my ego. Even my objective perspective, right, is still tainted inadvertently to a large degree by my ego.
there you go.
You
Yeah,
know what I'm
yeah, yeah.
saying? Like
Egos,
even when you're
man.
not trying to do it, it's not like people are like, and people think ego is like, oh, I got, they think of Gaston from damn Beauty and the Beast. Like, nah, bro, it's not making a song about yourself and down in 18 eggs to prove how strong you are. Like, nah, like everybody has it. It's almost like a
Right.
defense mechanism in a lot of
And
ways.
it's a blind spot. It's a blind. Yeah, it is. So
Yep.
somebody told me once that ego does two things. It protects you because when you're walking across the street, when you look to the left, without you even realizing it, that's your ego protecting you.
Yeah.
Ego is meant to like back in the day, you have a tiger that might eat you. Well, ego said, "Hey, be careful," right? You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's,
Yeah,
but that
it
same
helps you
ego can,
prepare. It helps you
yeah,
overachieve. Like there's a lot of
yeah,
good things about it, but it's also can be very very dangerous when it's untamed.
trap,
And
yeah,
so now I'm like, and that thought actually hit me, which was weird for like everybody I talked to about. They're like, they know like, oh yeah, oh my ego is melted, but they think like, I guess, and it's because of, I guess it depends on the trauma, like you said, it depends on the trauma and experience that you've had.
all right,
So they're
yeah,
thinking my
yeah,
ego's
yeah.
melted, which is a good thing that they realize that, so they start to begin to change how they view themselves in the world. My thing was, wow, my ego, what the, it, like, why do I feel like this? How many decisions was I
Mm,
making based off of my ego? Then I'm
yeah,
starting to
yeah,
think like,
yeah,
oh my God, these people have no idea what they're doing. The whole world is
yeah,
making decisions off of the wrong shit. Like
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
whole world, bro. And so
And
now,
guess what?
if
Oh,
someone
I'm sorry.
slighted me, I would look at them
Right.
like, hold up, come on, man, what's going on? What's really happening? Why are you really saying that? Why are you really coming at me? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then I'm like, look, I don't hate you. I don't hate you. We're not in competition. Like, so what's the problem for real? And then all of a sudden you
Mm.
kind of disarm them, and they're like, hold up, what?
Right, right. Yeah,
And
by the way,
it start to work from there. But go ahead.
no, but so before I get back to this, the memo to sheet thing, I just want to add this is how insane our politics is. Because we're voting for people that A, most likely never really seen these type of adversities, right? So it is adversity on this level that really gives you empathy. So when you have somebody that's been born into generational wealth, that has all the money in the world, that has no idea about your struggles, you expect those people to address your issues? You expect millionaires to fix the issues of the working and class and the poor?
Mm-hmm.
So the only way I could give you an analogy on this is if you had a blackjack table and you're on a vicious winning streak, you won 20 times in a row. Everyone else at the table is losing. Would you ever say, "Hey, we need a new dealer"?
Nope.
And on the same side, why do you expect millionaires to give you a new deal? Like they're winning, you're losing.
What do they do? They switch out the dealer if you start winning.
Right.
This ain't the way it's supposed to go. The house supposed to win.
Well, yeah, we're not going to talk about what happened to Black Wall Street.
Oh man! Once again, whole different video. But now I want to bring it back really quick to something that we don't necessarily disagree on, but I think that it's very, very much so worth discussing, which is because especially given Obama's comments last week, they came under a lot of fire for. So that the phrase "defund the police" has once again been brought back into the fold, which is interesting for a lot of reasons. But for me, primarily, I think that recently it's come back into the fold because we haven't seen any recent developments, not that I am aware of. And yet it's all of a sudden becoming a popular conversation again. And I truly believe it's because it's a prediction of what Biden is going to be like. And they're preempting the blowback. Now, Obama comes out and says defunding the police is a horrible slogan, et cetera, et cetera. You are not a fan of the slogan either.
Nope.
I can't say I'm a fan of it, but I understand its intention and I do actually agree with it. So can you explain to the audience why you think that the slogan is not necessarily beneficial to racial justice?
So let me just say it this way. Not everyone should be a chef, right? We have different skills in life. Mm-hmm. I can't play, I explain this actually, right? So, but I can't play the tuba or I can't sing. If I do, I'm going to embarrass myself. It'll be counterproductive. In that same way, not everyone should be coming up with political strategies or just strategies about how to get things done. I agree with that the militarization of the police, it's horrible. It is the very thing that the Constitution was written that said, hey, you cannot have the power of the state so powerful that you effectively prevent the people from rising up. If you look at the original Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, there's clauses in that basically says that if it's not working for us as a people, we have a right to start over again. Mm-hmm. Right? So, and that's why the militias back in the day were encouraged. It was a way to check the power of the central government. Yeah. But
it wasn't just encouraged; it was a system of the Constitution. Like it was. Nah, this is necessary. It said necessary. They use that word as necessary. Necessary. And what's interesting about it is the Second Amendment. It says it's right to bear arms in a well-regulated as necessary to blah blah against your government or foreign or domestic. It's like, hold up. So it's not just saying right to bear arms, but as necessary, as in if they want to show up with AT-4s and tanks and drones, well, bitch, you allowed to have AT-4 tanks and drones because you got to be able to defend yourself against them. Right. And so, but yeah, go ahead, 100.
So the power there should be parity up to a point between the people and the governed and the governors, right? Mm-hmm. But proving, I used to say that every revolution returns back to the tyranny that gave birth to it. Every one of them, right, including the American Revolution. King George has nothing on what's going on right now. King George was a saint compared to what's going on right now. You think the Stamp Act and the Sugar Act were oppressive? We're being taxed to death.
You think that's taxation without representation? Boy.
Yeah. Look at what's going on right now. We're being what do you call it? The Federal Reserve. The most anti-constitutional thing ever created was the Federal Reserve. America has no sovereignty. It's banks that own this country, not us. The vote that you're partaking, I'm sorry to say it to you, breaking news, Americans. The policies, the most important function a government could set is economic policies, specifically inflationary policies. Who does that? The Federal Reserve does that. Yeah. So, do you vote for the Federal Reserve?
Nope.
No. Does Congress have the ability to interfere in the Federal Reserve?
No. They do not.
Can the president do that? No. Who are the Federal Reserve?
They can do some things executively with the Federal Reserve, though. They do have a little bit of power over it, but not to set interest rates and shit. They can't it would be hard for them to stop the interest rates from being set by the Fed.
The only thing that they could do is replace the board of governors who gets to be on it. But even that's being picked from banks.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I'm saying? Like ultimately, so if I replace one KKK with another KKK, it's still the same system in place. You know what I'm saying? So
You replace the KKK with the PPP.
so you know, they said that, and this happened, by the way, in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was implemented at the behest of J.P. Morgan, and the reason that happens is because J.P. Morgan used his media empire to create a run on the banks, and then basically sink the country into depression. And then
that was actually for they actually kind of did that to ignite World War One.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like it was like basically it was all in. Basically they wanted to be able to use private funding because the federal government obviously can't just shovel out unlimited money, but you need to also be able to track to make sure people can't compete, because like as the government funds counter revolutionary movements, another independent bank, let's just say maybe a bank from Black Wall Street, could fund revolutionary movements simultaneously. And also call you on your bullshit with your interest rates because they have different numbers.
Yeah. And so what you need to have then is to eliminate all competition. You need to have one global world order. Why does that sound familiar? Because it's on the back of your dollar. It says Novus Circulum or Dura Circulum, something like that, right? It's in Latin. This means New World Order. You know, like they tell us what they're doing all the time. It's right in front of us.
That's what the ego does. Yeah.
You know, so if you look on your bank, on the back of your dollar, there's two pyramids. One pyramid, which is the base, that's us. Another pyramid with an eye on it, watching the pyramid beneath. So it's two pyramids, each with three sides. Each side has three dots. So 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. You just add it on, it comes out to 666. So, you know, like, I know these things sound like weirdly conspiratorial. This is what I don't know if anybody knows about, like the secret societies that are all about in DC. Trust me, they are one. There are a lot of secrets, like the whole
Skull and Crossbones has a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Like, not even joking. Like, John Kerry and Bush were in the Skull and Crossbones. Actually, the founder of FedEx was also in Skull and Crossbones with John Kerry and Bush. That's a different discussion for a different day.
But every president was in a fraternity except for one. Every one of them. And they also say that every one of them have the same bloodlines. You know what I'm saying? Like these things. Anyways.
Yeah, that's a whole different. But back to defund the police. So basically, you feel like it's ineffective. And you could be correct from one perspective. But in my opinion, the point of the term defund the police is for it to be purposely inflammatory. Like, why? They want you to be like, what the hell? Why would you want to get rid of all the police? Why would you want something like that? And then, of course, now here's where it gets kind of tricky and where it could be bad strategically, which is now you have to be really, really damn educated on just how intricate the corruption within policing institutions has been, how long term it's been, the history of policing institutions, how, like, for example, we were talking about this on the phone off camera earlier, like, the Republicans swore to God that Barack Obama was some secret Muslim just working for black people, and he gave y'all damn near everything you wanted when it came to oppressing and suppressing and terrorizing minorities. For those racist people, he was there, bro. He just blew indigenous out the water, literally out the water, like in Standing Rock, literally. Right?
But isn't that the point of manufactured outrage? Like you said something earlier. You said, how come they didn't say, like you mentioned, which I don't know, I'm not privy to, right? So I can't necessarily jump on it. But you know, if it like the stuff about him being born in the hospital, that was a CIA thing, right? Let's just assume that is 100% factual. And how come they never touched that? Because then that would knock down the House of Cards.
Yeah. Right? Oh, you're right. Yeah. There's some stuff that even if you don't like that person, like, hold up, let me check with this person before I say that about this person, because you could take yourself down the process. Yeah. So Trump, what did Trump do? He attacked him for being a secret Muslim. If you wanted to really expose him, he could have gone after the real issues. Yeah. Now I will also say that at the time, I don't think that Trump knew he was CIA because it wasn't really a popular, and you know, Trump ain't no book, so there's that. But back to the slogan, it's really about initiating the conversation to now force you to engage with me instead of me just saying and only saying Black Lives Matter for you to respond with all lives matter or blue lives matter, specifically in this conversation. Because now it's about what those phrases mean. Okay, so cool. Because every time I say BLM, you want to engage with me about what BLM means or what you think it means, or okay, defund the police. Well, defund. What you gonna respond with something with defund the police? Nah, defund Congress. Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah.
So your starting point in the negotiation is to incite people.
In this particular case, because of what we discussed earlier, like you're saying, like it would be, you were saying, and rightfully so, that it would be ineffective for conservatives. It would not like the outreach to them would be horrible. It almost is like saying BLM to a lot of them because they immediately feel like, oh, you're discounting them. They feel like they're taking something away from them, right? Their value.
I agree with that.
Now in police, but, right?
That's why they defund
the police. They feel like you're taking away safety and security away from them. But what you have to then do, you say defund it. They're like, well, why would we ever do something like that? And that's when you engage them. It says, because look at what they've been using your money to do to you. Not just black people, which is kind of like the why I feel like defund the police is almost superior to Black Lives Matter, because it includes everybody. It's like, look at what your police department's been doing to you. Who gave? Why are you, when you're pulled over, for example? Because we don't even got to get into black people being shot. When you're pulled over, you're guilty. You're guilty. You're going to pay a lawyer to prove you're not guilty. You're going to pay a public defender $50 to prove you're not guilty, which really just means taking a deal. Or you're going to pay the ticket. In other words, you're guilty, right? We all know what that really means to the average working class person. That means you're guilty. So why are you okay with that?
So
who are they protecting by doing that? You know what I'm saying? But go ahead. Oh, hold up. Really fast. We got a super chat. Jig Forever, thank you very much for the super chat. Amazing and fascinating discussion. Would love this to be explored more, how the financial institution changed the world in the early part of the 20th century. Funny enough, I was just talking to Tio about this. I'm going to be covering Black Wall Street. I'm still in the middle of investigating, but I don't want to put out the video until I literally go to Oklahoma and go to Greenwood, because what I think I know is like groundbreaking news. Like really, it's about Black Wall Street and whatever bank was supposed to be there, and like the real reason that Black Wall Street was burned down. So, but yeah, I agree. If we start looking at why and how the financial institutions were created and the timeline of things that were happening at the time, it is a very, very fascinating discussion. But go ahead, Tio.
So my point is this. I think it's counterproductive at the very least to start off your negotiation about triggering people and then explain it to them afterwards.
But is it a negotiation?
Huh?
But is it a negotiation?
A conversation. So
but go ahead. That's what I'm saying. But that's what it's supposed to be, a conversation. Now, granted, it is a demand.
Yeah.
But
a conversation is impossible to have when you punch somebody in the nose with a rhetoric, though, which is what I consider that to be, right? It's like this.
Black Panther Party can I give you an example? In the nose with their rhetoric.
Can I give you an example?
Go ahead.
Can I give you an example? A white guy comes on to you and says he likes your culture, but his initial opening salvo was, "Oh man, you must be a good dancer. You're a black guy," right?
But what's your intention with that conversation?
No, that's my point. It doesn't matter.
No, it does matter. Because if my intention is to have a discussion, a long form discussion, to hash out all the details and the truth, that's different. That's different than, hey, I'm just trying to compliment you, and I just did it in a really dumb way.
Yeah, but I guess for me then, if I could explain, Niko, what I'm trying to get at is this. This is not theory for me. So when I stayed in South Carolina, I ran into one dude, bald-head white guy, and I knew the minute, and this was at the Greenville mission. The minute I saw him, I knew. I could tell. You ever get vibes immediately?
Yeah.
I knew that he was a racist. And he kept looking at me, and I wanted to beat him up, to be honest. I was already bitter at the world as it was. I was going to be like, you're going to catch, right? But I was smoking cigarettes back then. So I was smoking a cigarette, and he came out one day just looking like a sad sack of, what. At first, I wanted to just gloat in his face. I you ever get satisfaction from gloating?
Yeah,
people that you don't
yeah.
like,
I done my fair
right?
share. Yeah, I ain't gonna
So I
lie.
wanted to do that, and then she that something spoke to me. I was like, man, this guy, he's probably down his legs just like me. So let me try something else. So I tried something else. I
Hmm.
offered him a cigarette, right? And that moment of compassion, he sat down next to me. I started talking to him,
Hmm.
and I told him about all the shit that I've been through, including what happened at that time,
Hmm.
right? And I did so not from a place of like pointing fingers and telling him that he's privileged or that he's X, Y, and Z or that he's an asshole, right? Which is what I would have done before that. But just open, like, became vulnerable.
Hmm.
I swear to you, by the time the conversation ended, he apologized to me and he told me that he used to be in the KKK. He said, "You're the first black guy that I've ever met that actually, like, everything up." He didn't say it in this way. He wasn't like, he wasn't
Hmm.
eloquent man. But he basically said, everything up until this point, I saw you as just an abstraction. And when you told me what you told me, like, I humanized myself to him. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And he apologized.
Hmm.
You understand when people and I think Niko, you and I talked about this before. You said something like this happened with your brother a long time ago, where that
Yeah, yeah, we talked
something
about it. Yeah.
right similar happened. So I just remember that. So what I'm saying is, I believe in the redemptive power of love.
Yeah.
I do. That's the premise of my writing. That's the premise of what I write about and talk about. Because guess what? Redemptive power of love is what saved me from a life of homelessness. This is not a theory for me.
Hmm.
This is a reality. I would not be here today if it was not for the redemptive power, that little small act of kindness, folding up my clothes, and by the co-founder of Guion Journal. I was talking about the memo to she. When I wrote that, somebody responded to it. She said, "Oh my God, this is amazing." We started talking. From that moment, I have not stopped talking to her since that day.
Hmm.
We met on Facebook because of what I wrote. She's the person that convinced me to stop writing on Facebook and to create a Guion Journal. She paid when I had no money. She paid for the website and for the domain, and I
Hmm.
worked on it. Right from 2,000 miles away. She was in Virginia. I was in Colorado, and we ended up getting married. You
Oh
know,
wow,
uh,
that's pretty
so she's
dope.
my wife now, and she's also the mother of my child. Had I stayed bitter, I would not be here right now. I would still
See,
be in Colorado on the
but
streets.
I'm gonna give you another anecdote because I have a very similar story. So not even what was it, August, I think it was. I went to an event in Milwaukee. It just happened to be more conservatives than like leftists there because of the pandemic, and so the people who are going to come basically just either didn't want to or they had to limit the crowd size. So I ended up spending time with a lot of conservatives that weekend. Now, this one, I just happened to sit at this table and we were having a great conversation, both because we all hated the establishment. So that's definitely one thing we had in common. And now we got to the conversation of defund the police, actually, very specifically. Because, and you could kind of tell they were trying to see what I was going to say because they kind of agree with me basically on everything up to that point in the conversation. We've been talking like 3 hours. So they were like, well, I just think that defunding the police is a stupid idea. Well, who are you going to call if something happens in your house that I don't call the police? They were like, well, most people, no. Most people from where I'm from, and I was in the hood, black neighborhood, nobody called the police because they either got there and made things worse or they were just didn't do anything, right? So what they were like, well, who do you rely on to protect yourself? Like the community. The community is who we rely on to protect ourselves. And either way, the just because we don't have an alternative yet, does that mean we should ignore the significant problem that we have? And they were like, well, why are you saying defund the police? And so I just gave a reference, for example, to LA. LA's 50% of their city's budget goes to LAPD. Obviously, most people in LA don't feel protected by the LAPD.
Mm-hmm.
And if my money is going I mean, these LAPD cops make an obscene amount of money for a police officer. And if my money as a taxpayer is going to this really private entity in a lot of ways to protect me, and I feel like not only do we feel unprotected, but a lot of us feel like we're terrified of the police officers, then we have an immediate problem. Like, because this, like, now, once again, I had the same conversation with this person, but mine involved my own personal experience with police brutality. Not, I mean, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Miami. I mean, Burger King. Burger King in one of the most public places. I was jumped by 6 police officers because the cops calling somebody else, and I was the biggest black person in the room. Wasn't even paying attention to them. I was just scrolling through my phone, waiting for my Burger King. And the only other person who was arrested that night, even though 3 white women and my wife tried to jump on these cops to get them off me because they were like, "What the hell are you doing? This is not the guy you were called for." And because my friend said, "Put your gun away," they arrested him too. Just because he said, "Put your gun away," he was the only black person in the room. The 3 white girls, they ain't want to hear nothing from them. Even the girl grabbed the cop from his neck, bro. And so I'm explaining this story to this conservative family. I'm like, what? I'm like, look, here's a picture. I was put in the hospital, had my arm in a sling. The cops pretended as if they had an arrest affidavit. They never had one. They held me in the hospital so I could not leave and then erased all my hospital records so I could not sue them. It's like that. And I'm telling them this, they're like, what? I'm like, and I'm in Brickell. So Brickell is like the financial district, metropolitan area of Miami. It's mostly white people, like 95% white. And yet I'm in the jail, in the like, kind of like the, what's the word? The reception, like kind of like the reception, I guess, because it's like that big. And like, so you're in the waiting room calling, trying to get
the processing area.
Incoming, basically.
Processing.
Right?
Processing.
There you go, man. See, I ain't been in a while, so I
watched it.
But so now I'm looking around, I'm like, bro, mind you, I'm in Miami on top of this. Right. Why am I in Brickell jail and it's all black people here? And you know what I'm saying? Like all black people. So you're telling me no one else? So a white person didn't do nothing wrong all day today is what you're telling me. You know what I'm saying? In an area, in a jail, or excuse me, in an area, it's basically all white, especially at that time of night. At the clubs we were at, it's like the nicer area of the town on top of that. And so when I'm telling them story, now they're like, oh man, well, you know, maybe I don't agree with necessarily 100% getting rid of the police, but like, maybe they do need to have a reduction in police officers. Maybe they do need to have.
But see, that's it. But that's it right there. You hit upon the head on the. So I don't. There's a way to stitch narratives to where people could look. Can I give you an alternative?
Yeah.
Suggestion on the narrative, what the narrative could be.
Well, but what is before you shift that gear? What I'm saying is the reason I use that anecdote is because I'm saying I agree with you. When you're talking about individuals, you can tell your story and personalize it, and not only humanize yourself, but humanize it via other people's anecdotes and things like that, to the point where people can't ignore it, and they even begin to empathize and sympathize with you. But when you're talking about on a grand scale, you have to do something to even initiate that conversation. If people were talking about, yeah, man, make sure police can't kill people and be corrupt, everybody be like, yeah, we agree. There's nothing controversial about that statement whatsoever. Now,
but there's another way.
Go ahead.
Look, so I used to, before I had this awakening by way of homelessness, Malcolm X had his Mecca. I had my Harvest Farm missions and whatever. But no, so before this awakening of mine, I used to, I would watch, for example, the Bundy, the Clyde family in Idaho, I think it was, Idaho, where they would protest against having to pay taxes on the land, and the police came with the force of a mechanized division, right? And they basically put down that mini insurrection, whatever it was, right? So, and then the white people get pissed about that. Fox News would get pissed off about that. You know what I would do? I would dismiss it. Even though the central premise is out of control police state, it's not cool that they're doing this, and they're kind of treading on the founder's vision of empowering the vision, vision that was never inclusive. I understand, but at least the ideals, even as hypocritic as it might have been, because they didn't include all. The ideals themselves were actually, I signed up to them. If we apply them, it's like the ideals of capitalism. If free markets and everyone has access to the marketplace, cool. That means I can compete with Google. I can compete with Apple based on the quality of our products, not based on how much I'm able to leverage my wealth in order to prevent competition. I'm cool with that. But the problem becomes when you bastardize it, right? So in that same way, what they spelled out in terms of the government not being able to go through and basically suffocate people's abilities to have a level of anonymity or not anonymity. What's the word? Like independence, right?
Mm-hmm. Autonomy
When
is what you're
that
looking for.
happens, autonomy. Thank you, bro.
Mm-hmm.
So when government should not be able to, up to a point, uh, they have to provide for basic services, but they should not be basically squelching the autonomy of human beings, of the citizenry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going on right now. So a lot of people on the right say they use keywords, big brotherism, big government. Even when they talk about like getting our country back, I don't think it's necessarily as much as at us as it is the fact that they feel like, well, I have no chance in this country.
They feel like
I
they're being
can't like,
dehumanized and that no one is
yeah,
looking out for them. That's what they
right.
feel like. Yeah.
So and because they can't really attach it to the government, then they demonize us. That's how tribalism works,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you can't affix a thing to attach your angers to, then you just attach it to the person that's closest to you, and
Now,
that's struggling just like you.
no, I agree with everything you just said, but I can't walk up or go on Twitter and summarize that in 160 characters or 240
okay,
characters.
but
I
maybe that's a
can't
problem.
hold on. I can't go even on the campaign trail. I can't go as an activist in the movement. Like the power, we talk about the power of words and not only the words, the way you phrase them, the timing of the phrase, even down to the alliteration, like you were talking about earlier. Right. Now, defund is clearly inflammatory, but why is it inflammatory? Because people think that means getting rid of all protection. It's like, no. We're saying defund this corrupt institution. When we said defund, defund these banks, or somebody said defund the Fed, would you say, oh, you're going to get rid of my bank? No, that's not what we're saying. You know what I'm saying?
Why don't you
defund traditional banks. That doesn't mean you're getting rid of every federal credit union. It means I want you completely broken down and built back up out of the damn ashes. That's what I mean. You know what I'm saying? And so, but the slogan, once again, the point of it, from what my understanding is, now we have to have this conversation because you think defund the police means one thing to such a degree that like maybe you could say, well, that's stupid. Now I got to ask you why. Now I get to ask you why.
And most people never get to that why. Most people never get to why.
No, but that's not my experience. That's not my experience. Because if I say defund the police, you say it's stupid. Now, of course, like I'm not gonna talk about like Twitter. Like Twitter, people just like, man, fuck you, bro. Like, but but like in real life,
Niko, you're different though.
But in real life, you can't run away from me. Because I just did my brother's. Somebody said that to me, like they were actually like a leftist. They were like, well, defund the police is a bad stuff. I'm like, oh, why? And at first they kind of hesitated because I guess they had really never heard that before. I was like, why? So now you got to explain yourself. Now you got to go through your logic. Now you got to go through your progression. Okay, hold up. Well, because these conservatives, yeah, but that's not who we're talking to. Because the conservatives don't run Minneapolis, the conservatives don't run Seattle, the conservatives don't run New York, the conservatives don't run Miami. Like, that's not who we're talking to. That's not what because the places you're talking about, that's not where we're primarily getting killed. It's in the places that are supposed to be dominated by minorities and black people. So now then who are you trying to reach out to? Neoliberals and liberals, and they're gonna be like, hold up, you mean Democrats? Well, why would? Because he's a Democrat. Well, what do you mean? They're on our team. Then why did Obama militarize the police? Whoa, what? So that wasn't Obama. Issue. So now we're having Niko, now we're going down a rabbit hole. Hold on. Now we're going down a rabbit hole of, wow, okay, I had no idea it was that bad. And you start like, Republicans, they support the police and their blue lives matter strike. Yeah, those blue lives matter strike motherfuckers are not the ones setting the policy.
Niko. But that's the issue, though. So why not focus on make the issue the militarization of the police? And I at least you have a shot at that point. So
what you mean? So you just said why not focus on what I just said? How? What is the focus of what I just said?
Huh?
What is the focus of what I just said?
Militarization of the police.
No. But that wasn't the focus of what I just said. He asked me, give me an example of why I believe that we should. Hold up. But I'm saying that wasn't the focus of what I just said. My focus was defunding the police. He said no. Then I said why. Then I asked him why. Then he started talking about conservatives, and I said, no, this is not for them, though. This is for Democrats. And so now I talk about Obama and militarizing the police as one example, one branch off this massive tree that we're trying to cut down together. You get what I'm saying?
You know what this is like? This is like when I was younger, and I used to go out trying to see, like every young man, how whether or not you could get lucky, right? And like it's the equivalent of like insulting somebody and say, "Hey, you have a big forehead," and then spending the next 2 hours
who is defunding the police insulting?
Like, I don't get that.
But who is defending the police insulting? Literally, I'm asking, like, generally.
No, so can I respond to that one, Niko?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there was a time in my life where I hated the police. I seriously, like, and because I felt that we're going up Woodbridge, I was
hold on. Whoa, we can't go into the anecdote yet. We can't go into the anecdote. You got to answer my question first. You can't hit me with the politicians. You got to answer who is defunding the police directly insulting.
No, I'm nuanced. I have a nuanced position.
I know. You can explain your logic after, or you can go to the anecdote after, but you got to at least answer the question so people know what we talk about.
Which is what? What's the answer? What's the question again?
The question was, who does the phrase defund the police offend?
It offends people. I don't know.
Why would you be insulted by it?
I think it offends people on the right. It offends some people that view like the law and order Republicans. It offends those people. It offends some people like that live in the suburbs.
Okay, so hold on. First of all, let me just say, offends in the word you use the word specifically insult. Maybe you meant offends though. That's possible. But you said it insults them. But now what's insulting about it?
Offense.
Okay, so I
can not even offend. It threatens because. And by the way,
yeah, that is the word. That's the better word. Yeah, threatens.
Okay, so it threatens. So because they have the scenario like the Wild West, and I've already said that we're being used all the time as a wedge issue. So then why allow yourself to be used as a wedge issue by playing into that fear? They already fear that we are going to just take over and march down to their homes in the suburbs and take over their house. So when you say defund the police, they're thinking, holy shit, they're going to come after what I have, right? So why? So they make
so
us
when a white kid,
some
white kid from Harvard is screaming defund the police, they think it's because the white kid from Harvard is going to come and take what people have.
They don't care about the white kid in Harvard. They're looking at us.
Okay, so there you go. Man. So now that once again we got to have another conversation. So is this about the police protecting you? Because the police aren't protecting us from going into your neighborhoods. They killing us in ours. So now, once again, now we get to have this conversation that we're having right now, all from one phrase. And obviously, you know a lot of what I'm talking about right now, but the average person doesn't know what I'm. Go ahead.
You and I see eye to eye. We're allies in this, right? So just we agree 98% of the time, and 2% is really more on approach, not necessarily the underlying, right? So, but even then, between us, it's creating some type of division. So can you imagine with somebody that does not see eye to eye? And I guess,
I would say that's only because you're not disagreeing with any of my arguments that I'm making. You're only disagreeing with the effectiveness of the phrase itself. The only reason that they could disagree with the effectiveness of the phrase, or they said they don't like the idea of defunding the police, because a lot of times they don't say the phrase. If you're talking about like neoliberals, a lot of times they're like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. Blue lives matter. They don't say, they say, oh, it's all the arguments that I make that they try to rebut. But at a certain point, you can't rebut every argument I got to make because it's fact. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I feel like?
Go ahead.
I feel like because of my distance away from these things, I don't necessarily attach myself 100% one way or the other. I'm able to look at these things differently. Look, in Ethiopia, you have a lot of people that get upset so I guess they identify me as from the Amhara tribe. Really, I feel myself as Ethiopian. I'm like 80% Amhara and like 20% Tigrayan, right? But I don't go into that. I just say consider myself Ethiopian. So when I see a Tigrayan person get killed, I get upset about that. When I see an Amhara person get killed, I get upset about that. When I see an Oromo person, I don't look at these things through the prism through the lens of identity. I view myself as Ethiopian, and above that, human being. So I guess that's the blessing of me feeling disconnected from communities for such a long time, is that I'm able to look at this from a broader perspective. Not saying other people are diminished because of it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But the reason I bring that up is in Ethiopia, you have, and Amars get killed, and Amars say, "Oh my God, Amars are getting attacked, we're getting crucified, we're getting right," and rightfully so. But then when an Omar person gets killed, silence,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's that whole like it's the all lives versus Black Lives Matter thing, except it's different because I believe all Ethiopian lives matter. That doesn't mean I don't get upset when Amars are getting killed, when Omas are getting killed, but in that community, they only look at it from what is happening to my tribe,
Yeah.
and they don't look at what's happening to all of us.
Yeah.
So that's why for me, BLM as a movement is also, even though the organization, even the messaging is counterproductive because we're allowing people to use this as a wedge issue, and you're preventing, like, this as well, Dr. Fred Hampton worked with the Proud Boys in the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
There's pictures of him sitting down with white guys with a Confederate flag over them,
Trying to form
and
a
he was
rainbow
like, I don't
coalition.
care, and he's like, I don't care about our differences. I don't care if you're white supremacists, which they were, but he's like, our commonalities are bigger than our differences, and they agreed, and they were trying to form that coalition, and that's why they killed him, assassinated him.
Yeah.
Like you had mentioned earlier, you could question about what happened with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. People that study, we kind of have our ideas, but we can't really prove it. Not so with Fred Hampton.
Yeah, there's no debate.
You know what I'm saying? But why would they kill him? Because he was trying to get people to unite across the divides.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Until we get, I know we could talk about this for now. I would love to come back on the show and tell you again. Here's what I was. We could talk forever, yo.
Yeah, I know. I'm about to respond and wrap it up because I'm not trying to, keep you up here all night. But
no, I'm not trying to. No, until we get to the point.
But
I know I'm going to say my piece and drop the mic and leave like Obama.
Man, I wish Obama would drop the mic and goddamn leave. The boy won't leave. He won't leave.
Yeah. Can't leave it alone. Like,
but I would just say
everything.
Well, I was going to say, I would just say, because no, you make a lot of great points. Don't get me wrong, and honestly, any strategist should consider that. Anybody who is trying to explain defund the police should hear those discussions. But I would just say this: whereas you say like it makes, which is true, it makes you a lot of times objective being from Africa, right? So you have a different lens, but also psychologically speaking, it also makes you dissociative. In other words, the trauma that affects everything, like you were talking about, in both good and bad ways, a lack of that trauma means you have a lack of empathy if you have not gone through any of that.
I have trauma too, though.
Huh? No, I'm not saying you haven't.
I have trauma too.
I'm not, huh?
I have trauma as well. Like the traumas of coming to a new land as an immigrant. The traumas.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying you don't have any trauma. That's not
right?
what I mean. I meant like specifically if you haven't necessarily, I don't know your past, but I'm saying if you haven't necessarily been specifically affected by police because you're a black man, like
I have.
I don't know. I'm sure you have, but I'm saying like, but also you've seen it generationally, like which you haven't, which is a good thing.
That I agree. I agree with you about that.
You know what I'm saying? But that's a good thing. But like that even for me, I don't even have it generationally. I just have been through so much personally that like I know what it is. But there are people from my hood, there is no debate about this. My dad went through this shit. My grandfather went through this, and nothing has changed. And it's not, and people say all the time, why not reform the police? Because it's like saying reform the government. Like, you can't reform our executive branch. You can't, unless you mean like by breaking it up and making it completely democratic. And that's not what is going to happen. But you got to ask, well, why is it like this? Do these people want to even be reformed? Like people say, oh, they need better training. Well, who did the training to begin with? Who's like, they're like, well, let's get the police chief didn't hold this person accountable because of what? Well, maybe the AG, just like Breonna Taylor's situation in was it not Minnesota, excuse me, Kentucky. And they're like, well, the AG lied about the jury agreeing with the judge that the cops shouldn't be prosecuted. So now you're like, hold up. Well, what is that? And you start doing your research, you find out, oh, Breonna Taylor was killed by a police force that was created as part of a gentrification project specifically to get black people out. They did their job. That's why Breonna Taylor's killers are not in jail right now. So now you're a guy to ask, well, what the fuck are these people even here for? And all of a sudden, now you understand we're saying defund the police. Because we got to get down to exactly this point. What's the point of them? Because like, oh, I feel protected by them. I feel protected. Well, do you own property? Do you have this? Have you ever been like this? And a lot of people feel protected by police. Like those 3 white girls that I was with. I'm sure maybe up until that point, they had zero problem with police officers whatsoever. And maybe probably even indifferent, to be honest. They get pulled over. Well, young lady, make sure you slow down. You have a good day. Just get to your destination safely. Right? Now, those 3 women, their perspective on police has completely and totally changed. From that one experience that unfortunately was so traumatic that anybody who witnessed it, even me, like I just block it out a lot of the times now. I don't even talk, like people will notice on my show, I don't even talk about police. Something crazy can go down and it has to hit a point of like, nah, this is it. I can't even, like with Breonna Taylor, this is like, I can't not talk about this anymore. But because like after I get off camera, I got to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like in my head and with myself. But that trauma is why almost the exact reason why I could see things so crystal clearly, because the argument that can be made against me or against the argument why the police should be defunded. I know everything from firsthand experience, from my education, from secondhand experience, and from, you know, the history of policing institutions. And because I'm not a hypocrite and I'm consistent, I also understand what powerful institutions are created for in this country. Right. And y'all, I'm like, y'all the same motherfuckers like you were saying earlier. Y'all the same ones that don't want a government damn near. What do you think the police are for?
So I will say this, Niko. There's something that you said that has always given me pause, which is, so as an Ethiopian, even though I do have my traumas, I can never imagine the horrors and the pains and the intergenerational scars that have been passed down. Even though I read about it all the time, I study African American history, even more so than Ethiopian history. Whether it's during the Great Reconstruction era, what happened with the Jim Crow era, what happened to the Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, I've studied, but that doesn't mean studying and living the experience are not the same thing. So I fully acknowledge that up to a point that these, like for example, when I say this own the label black, it's from I talk about these from an academic perspective.
Yes. And to a large degree, you're right about the associative like properties of words on our psyche. Like that is fact. Like but like the not only just the trauma, like PTSD is can actually be passed down now, or it's been learned. It can be passed down through DNA. So like for me, I probably yesterday I was in my neighbor was in an altercation with police officers. Police officers were here to get someone who literally tried to walk into my house and break into my house. And the person that they arrested, his apartment just got broken into, and because he went across the hallway because somebody else's apartment just got broken into, the door was left open. He's like, yo, is anybody here to see? Like, yo, did y'all see anything? The camera caught him just going in there in the door because the door was open. The police arrested him. Nobody gave the description of the black dude in the dreads who lives in a nice building. They gave the description of a lighter skinned Latino guy with short hair and skinny. But because of the black man having dreads on camera, oh, I can say I got my job done. Appreciate it. Thank you. And everybody will believe me because look at you.
And by the way, even that, like, even during my most distressful times, because I grew up in Woodbridge, because I'm Ethiopian, and I don't know, I'm not trying to elevate myself when I say these things, but I don't come across as threatening to white people.
Nah, yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I smile a lot. And even when I was depressed and really had nothing, there was something about me where I just.
Well, you know what that is? That's that's protection. Like over time, you learn to, to fashion your identity, your demeanor, for some people with that ability, you even fashion your aura in a way that's palatable, right? I'm guilty. I won't say guilty of it, but I learned to do that too growing up.
Yeah, and guess what? Obama did too. That's why
All right, yeah, Barry.
I take what he. Yeah, that's why up to a point, am empathetic to his situation, and also why I feel so betrayed. You know
Mm,
what I'm saying? Because I know what he must have felt like because I walked those shoes too, being everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You know, being able to go anywhere and fit in without fitting in. And these things are, these are like many traumas too.
mm.
So on that
Bro, I know, me
layer,
too. I'm the same way because
I,
from a black perspective, from a diaspora perspective, somebody's also struggling with
anything.
identity. And it's funny.
Yeah.
Before we go, my grandma told me. I think we talked about this like long time ago when you were on my show. Like my grandma told me that she knew what time it was with Obama from the beginning
Mm.
because of his identity crisis. She
Yeah,
knew. She's
yeah.
like, that's how they take advantage of us. I was like, what are
Uh,
you talking about?
Shall I bring
And
this up, Nico?
what's up?
I have a question for you. I don't know if I should bring this up because I'm trying to get to a point where I'm not mad at him anymore. But there is something about him that blew my mind. You know what it was?
What?
Look up his YouTube clip of him challenging Bobby Rush.
Bobby Rush?
Yeah, for the Congress in 2000 when he ran for Congress and lost to Bobby Rush.
Okay.
And listen to the way he talks in that speech and that debate. Listen to the way he talks now,
It,
night and day
was it like that?
difference.
Was it like that? Like how George Bush did it? Like when he pretend like he went from being super.
Bro, it's worse.
Oh, it's
It's
worse.
worse. If you ever seen Meet Joe Black, where the dude changes his persona on a whim,
Yeah.
that's how Obama was.
Oh, I gotta check. I gotta check that out then. I gotta check that
And
out.
yeah, and if you know that, so then let me give you a quick background on this. And, so when he lost in 2000, Axelrod told him, I think it was Axelrod that was the campaign manager back then. He said, "You know why you lost, Obama? You're not black enough. We had to blacken you up." And that is when he started doing a lot of,
Yeah.
black
In
things in
Chicago, you
Chicago.
definitely need to be, got a little, maybe a little bit of
You
flavor,
know why?
a little bit.
Because you don't win Chicago as a Democrat without the black vote. It's like South Carolina. And Bobby Rush, who was the former Black Panther Party, who he became a congressman, he had the black vote on lock, and so he lost to him. So
Hold
that's when he
up.
started going to.
Obama ran against a Black Panther Party member or former Black Panther.
Yeah, but bro, it's not what you think.
Oh, he's
Bobby
a
Rush
John
is
Lewis.
not for
He's a John
anything.
Lewis civil rights activist.
Yeah. Trust me, he ain't that. You know what I'm saying? Like he was one of the ones that Angela Davis hangs her head around. Like I can't believe that was this. You know what I'm saying? So he's John Lewis, and it's funny that you say that because John Lewis was honorable when he was marching on Pettus Bridge. He's been marching on black folks since then.
Look, I don't.
All
So
on
here's my thing.
bikes.
I don't even know if you consider it honorable, because I'm a firm believer in the shadow self, and that's like yeah okay because you're going through this because you personally know what black people go through. Are you sure? Are you marching really for black people? Or are you marching so you can have the
Uh,
opportunity that white men have?
Marching towards what you marching for. All right, yeah, that's
Oh,
great.
ooh, we gonna leave it on that one. We gonna leave it on that one.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Teardros Fikre Miriam. Tell everybody where they can find you at, Twitter, your
Sure.
website, and of course the links will be available in the description after this is uploaded as well.
Sure. Yeah. First and foremost, now, Nico, I can't believe we've been talking for 3 hours.
Bro, I know it's been a while since I had a conversation that long.
That's we just produced that movie, man.
I know, right? We produce a Marvel movie, but go ahead, man.
Nah, so thank you. And I look forward to having this conversation with you. And I think maybe we'll do like a more lighthearted conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it greatly. And thank you everyone else for watching and commenting. I really appreciate it. You can find me at our website is www. .gion, that's Gion, Gion journal.com. I'll probably just type it into that. Actually, I'm in the
I'm
chat, so
doing it right
I'll
now. Don't worry
chat
about
in
it.
there. And then you can also follow us on Twitter, the same thing. Twitter and IG is the same thing. Gion Journal, one word. And lastly, you can also look me up on Twitter. It's you see how my name is spelled Teodros, and then just drop the Mariam part, Figure, just Teodros Figure, Fikre, one word. So that's where you can find me. I write pretty much almost on a daily basis. I wrote something today about almost about the same thing, what we talked about now, because it was about like how we as a community don't support each other. And I'm talking about that within the Ethiopian community,
Mm.
within the African American community, within the African diaspora as a whole, and how up to a point, um, the viability of Black folks in the 50s and 40s was better compared to where we're at now.
Yeah.
In terms of on the broader level,
Yeah.
you have outliers where they're succeeding, but the masses are suffering and are being buried into generational poverty. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the main ones that we can control is because we don't really know how to work with each other and work together as a people.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to support one another. You know, like Niko has this channel and there's 103 people watching right now, which is a lot. I cannot wait to get to that point. And there's going to be thousands of watching this down the line. But, you know, if Rachel Maddow went live, she would have a million people tuned in right now. And I humbly submit before you, who edifies you more? These type of conversations or the ones that incite you and lead you nowhere? So we as a people need to work together and really help elevate each other's gifts so that we could start creating pockets of wealth. And these pockets of wealth could lead to a transformational watershed moment for African Americans. So I mean, for really all communities, because I think this is a human thing.
Yeah, people don't get it. Like if the Black community is successful, like to be real. We really don't got much choice but to eventually spend our money in the white community. When the middle class was the strongest, it was when the Black community was very successful. People don't know that. Yeah. So, fun facts for y'all.
At the end of the day, like, and I'm not going to say I disagree with you. I believe in community empowerment.
Yeah.
And I believe, and so that
there's nothing wrong. Just because you believe in empowering your own community doesn't mean you believe in disempowering someone else.
Yeah. But for me, though, so, and in fact, if I believe in empowering, for example, let's say Ethiopians, I believe in empowering Ethiopians, but I also believe in empowering African Americans. These are not mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. These are actually inclusive together because as one strengthens and then we work together across the divides, we all strengthen. So, anyway, that's my take on it.
It's important to mention for those of you, he very, very dedicated to empowering the working class specifically, right? These are all, they require different strategies and they have different benefits. That's why it's okay to, like, I'm very big on empowering women, right? Because I believe in the same thing. I'm like, women, if they work together, y'all, we done.
Yeah.
Man, our time up, bro. We not as good as this as y'all think we are.
It's time for us to be in the kitchen, yeah.
Bro, hey, man, look, I brought some dishes to Thanksgiving. They thought my wife cooked them. They thought my wife, I'm like, that's me. I came in there with the coquito because my wife is Latina. They thought that she made it. I'm like, nah, that was me, homie. That was me.
If we can find like peace in this world because we're cooking, I'll take that any day.
Hey, bro, I'll take that all day. Please let me be in the kitchen all day. Appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. It was an amazing discussion. Make sure y'all follow us and you can subscribe obviously here, but you can also subscribe to my backup, which is in the link in the description below. Subscribe on Rockfin and Odyssey. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, always remember more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.
Peace. Thank you, Niko. I appreciate you, man. God bless. Peace.